This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Okay, so let's do early day 3 and late day 3 so we can get to that. Tez Johnson is
Come on.
I still believe.
Come on.
I will not quit Tez Johnson. I will
Dante
not
Thornton's
quit.
right there.
I will not quit. I won't quit Tez Johnson. I'm gonna.
It's an interesting strategy.
I'm gonna go down with the ship with Tez Johnson. I'm not wrong until I'm wrong, right? Isn't that one of your shows? Like that's one of your staples at the
Well, you'd be
Sports Hub.
take committed. That's a big Felger thing.
Right,
He thought
but
he caught me
until-
wavering on Michael Penix last year and read me the riot act.
But until you're wrong, you're not wrong. That's a big take. And I know Felger sometimes has. So I'm just saying I'm not wrong yet on Tez Johnson. He could be really good in the NFL. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And that's the case with all these guys, I suppose. But hello, everybody. Welcome in. Patriots Catch-22. 8 days. 8 days to go till the NFL
But who's
draft.
counting?
Alex, I am counting at this point. Let's get there. Let's get the picks made, and let's figure out who's going to be Patriots out of this class. But 8 days to go till the draft. It's a very exciting time with the draft. I feel like all the hay is almost there. We're almost in the barn at this point, I would say. And we get to the point now where we just are in the middle of reading body languages at press conferences and lying season and all that kind of stuff. So,
Well, as Mike Vrabel said yesterday, like he talked about they're going through their running simulations to figure out what they're going to do
I
in
love
different
how
situations.
they refuse to call them mock drafts,
Yeah.
even though that's exactly what they are.
Well, I think they're a little more involved. They're not putting the PFF. Maybe they are putting the PFF simulator on, but
They might be.
Setting up certain trades. But I mean, we used to on our old show, we used to do that exercise all the time, and people go, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing it to the same extent they are,
No.
but it's a good
We're
exercise.
not comparing ourselves
It's
to
a
the
good
actual
exercise. No, we're
scouts
not.
and GMs, okay? But I do love how every single GM gets up there and says, "Yeah, we're running simulations," and I was like, "You can just say that you're doing mock drafts, like that. That's what you're doing.
simulations.
That's what you're doing. It
Simulation.
Just, it sounds fancier to call them simulations.
If they're not going to call them mock drafts, maybe I'll start calling my mock draft simulations.
yeah, should I Patriots
up to them.
simulation 3.0?
Patriots draft simulation.
Yeah, there you go. Now we're in the business. We're in the know. Anyways, before we get rolling here, support the home team. Join New England's event staff here at Gillette Stadium. Seasonal positions available in food and beverage, parking, and security. Visit www.thecraftgroup.com/careers and apply today. Alex, you were a vendor at one point, weren't you?
I
At
was
Gillette
in high
Stadium?
school. I was a hawker.
You were a hawker here.
That was my
can
first
you explain what that means? I don't know if
So
everybody knows what
the
that is.
hawkers are, you see them out there, the guys in the yellow shirts that are, so I didn't work in one of the concession stands.
Yeah.
I would have the bag of pizza or water or whatever. I didn't sell beer. I wasn't old enough when I worked here to sell beer.
Yeah.
But the bag of whatever over the shoulder, get your pizza here, who wants pizza? And it was games, concerts. That was the first of 3 times I worked for the team.
That's incredible. That's a great story. You know, that's right up there with Mr. Kraft being on the bleachers at the old Sullivan. You know, what was it called again?
Sullivan Stadium, Foxborough Stadium, Schaefer Stadium.
Schaefer Stadium. That's what I was going for.
That was my first Patriots game that I went to.
Yeah.
I worked as a hawker. It was, what season did they open? It would have been, I think it was 2010. Did they open against the Bengals? It was an opener against the Bengals. That was my first game, and I was working.
That's fascinating. Were you ever on the bleachers at the old Foxborough Stadium? Did you get to a game before they opened Gillette?
Not for a Patriots game.
Okay.
I went for a Revs game, and I think I was younger. Maybe 1 or 2 other events, but not a Patriots game.
Okay, so my very first game was at the old Foxborough Stadium. It was a night game. I can't tell you if it was Sunday or Monday night or whatever, but it's a night game in the pouring rain against, I believe, Aaron Brooks's New Orleans Saints.
Oh, there you go. That's a pull.
Yeah, and it was pouring. And I remember, I couldn't have been more excited. I didn't care at the time, but my parents were very worried about the weather and about, me getting soaked, at 4 or 5 years old. But it was a good time. Anyways, enough down memory lane. Let's get into
Wait, hang on. I found the game. It was against the Bengals. I was right.
Oh, okay.
2010 against the Bengals. Patriots won 38-24. I just want to see how Brady did. Brady was 25 of 35, 258, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Ho hum.
Oh yeah, exactly. Ho hum
Wes
performance.
Welker caught a couple touchdowns. Good day.
I know that there's some helmet news today that is
I didn't even think we were going to get in that.
Tom Brady adjacent.
Wait, hang on. Carson Palmer in that game, 34 of 50, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Well, 50 attempts.
It was a duel.
Yards.
There was some helmet news.
There's some helmet news, but today is also the 25th anniversary of the day the Patriots drafted Tom Brady.
I thought that was yesterday.
I think it's today. In the sixth round, but regardless if it was today or yesterday.
Oh, it is today because it's Belichick's birthday.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and it's also Bill Belichick's birthday.
Our old man.
So happy birthday to the coach.
Happy birthday to Bill.
There. All the pleasantries are out of the way.
There we go.
Now.
We got a little nostalgia in early.
Let's get into the pre-draft press conference yesterday. Both of us were there with Mike Vrabel at the podium, and that was a pros pro press conference. He, to me, I know that everybody wants to read into everything and read between the lines and look at body language. I know his left tackle answer, there's a lot of body language doctors out there that are trying to decipher what exactly his mood was towards the tackles. The way I read it was that was a pros press conference. He gave nothing away.
A lot of words. Well, so
Nothing.
I would push back on he gave nothing away.
Very little.
I think we learned a lot about his big picture draft philosophy.
Sure.
And some of that might just be because it's the first year we're covering him doing a draft, and
Yeah.
there wasn't much to learn about Bill's draft philosophy at the end because there was 20 years of data to go through. But we didn't really get anything about this draft. These press conferences the last few years, whether it was Elliott Wolf or Matt Groh, I remember walking out last year. I think I said this to you when I wrote it at the time, so you can go and find it. I came out of that saying they're going quarterback, receiver, tackle. Those are whoever it is, that's the order, because Wolf, he talked about the depth in the tackle class and said they liked the group they had. And he kind of hyped up their receivers, and I remember he kind of laid it out. The year before, they talked about more, in so many words, reliance on the combine. And what did we get? We got a very combine-based draft.
Yeah.
So the last few years, this press conference was very indicative, very telling. I felt like we got quite a few answers to the test coming away from that. I don't know that I think I have a better understanding of the way Vrabel views roster building as a whole, but there's not much, and some of it is the way this draft is structured, there's not much that applies to this specific draft. The only thing I think that does, I don't know if you want to start here or start somewhere else, I don't want to jump the gun, but was his answer about taking a risk on a player who's maybe not a personality fit if the guy's talented.
Yeah, that is kind of where I did want to start, because I thought that was the most important answer to come out of the press conference yesterday, because, just coupling this with all the buzz about Jalen Walker lately, as it pertains to the Patriots at 4 overall, and Jalen Walker just being that type of guy. I've compared him in the past, both playing style perspective and leadership, to Dante Hightower, just like one of those guys that is going to be a captain, is going to be a leader, is going to ooze football intangibles and character in your locker room. And I look at Vrabel's answer yesterday, where it was Mike Giardi who asked the initial question about, basically drafting good guys, high football character players. And he said, he kind of stopped him and was like, well, talent comes first, right? They got to be good at football. And then he also added, just to get the direct quote, so I can quote him directly. We can't do what we want to do with just a bunch of good dudes. That's not going to get it done. So essentially, I read it as him saying, it's not enough just to be a good guy. You also have to be a good football player.
So I interpreted that a little differently. I took that more as about Abdul Carter. And that's obviously in the news too, with Shadur meeting with the Giants again and all of that. But the Bob McGinn report, that, not the guy's not, there's just some question about his work ethic, basically. Not that he's the worst person in the world, but there's some questions about his work ethic. And is that the kind of guy Vrabel's going to want to bring in? And we talked about, I think we talked about this last week. I talked about it with Felger last week about how this is part of the reason why you build a strong culture. And that was part of that question that it was Giardi, right? Specifically mentioned Morgan Moses and said, when you have guys like Morgan Moses and other leaders, does it help you, and Bill did this for years. Bill did this for years. I would say more successes than failures. It wasn't all successes, but the majority were successes. But it's a lot easier to do that 10 years into building the culture than year one when you're trying to establish it. But what I kind of interpreted that as from Vrabel was basically, if a guy's good enough, he's good enough, and we'll make it work. And you don't want, he talked about, you're going to meet with him. You don't want a guy that you think is irredeemable.
Yeah.
But, all right, if a guy's not Matthew Slater, he's not Devin McCourty, but he's a really, in terms of leadership, obviously those guys are good football players, but if they're not those guys in terms of how they operate in the locker room, but he's a really good football player, well, you need good football players first, and then you bring them in and you work on it from there. So there had been some questions about, would the Patriots rule out Abdul Carter because of some of those mental red flags? One, I think those are a little overblown. But for what they are, and this team has put culture at a premium throughout the offseason, I kind of took that Vrabel answer to mean, as long as they think he's within a realistic realm, which the stuff that's been reported I don't think is anything egregious.
Yeah.
It's maybe not what they want, but it's not egregious. I kind of took that to mean like Abdul Carter, that stuff's not going to be disqualifying for him getting drafted by the Patriots.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing just through two different players. And the reason why I brought up Jalen Walker was, one, because I don't feel like we've necessarily totally unpacked Jalen Walker on the show as a potential Patriot, because I haven't felt until recently that he was really in this conversation. I have him, I'll look it up in a second to be exact, but I have him like 8th or 9th on the board right now in the top 10. Certainly a top 10 player in this draft, but I don't necessarily see him as a top 5 talent in a class like this, even in a class like this, I should say. But there's been a lot of scuttlebutt, and this, mostly coming from the media, obviously, that Jalen Walker's character and his intangibles and his leadership would maybe push the Patriots to draft somebody like him, maybe even over someone like Abdul Carter. And the way that I took Vrabel's answer, just taking it at face value, is I think the football player comes first. Like what they are on film and the talent of the player has to come first. And I like Jalen Walker as a player. I like the complete package that he brings to the table, as we've been talking about. But I have some reservations about picking him that high as a tweener. Like, he's really not a guy that's going to have a full-time position. He's going to be somebody like Hightower that first and second down, you're going to play him off the ball. Third down and obvious pass situations, he's going to be rushing the passer, probably off the edge. You're going to have to move him around. He's going to have to be a chess piece on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think he's a natural fit at either spot in terms of full-time usage at off-ball linebacker or at edge. He's also 6'1", 240 pounds. To play the edge with that length and with that size at a 70% clip is probably going to be unrealistic.
No, he's going to be a primary linebacker. Like Hightower's going to be a primary linebacker. Yeah. Even Bentley kind of, and Bentley's obviously bigger, but Juwan Bentley kind of did that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you talk about the talent coming first. To me, it's more, and Vrabel talked a little bit about this yesterday. Was it you who asked this about, like, what's the tiebreaker if the players are graded similarly, which is a great question for this draft specifically.
I know, I tried to get him. I think he knew what I was going after.
He knew what you were going for. But he said some of the things we've said, right?
Yeah.
Position is a tiebreaker. I think he said that, right?
He said versatility and premium
position is a tiebreaker.
Combine testing was
testing is another one. I think he didn't say it, but if I were to project, or just how I would approach it if I was in that spot, and what does that matter? I don't know. I'm not there. I would think, though, like personality, leadership, approach, mental approach, I would think that applies as a tiebreaker as well. So I don't know that it's, Carter and Walker being the same player. Like, if they're close, if they have Carter, and I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass here.
Yeah.
They have Carter graded as an 8.5. They have Walker graded as an 8.3. Are those leadership, intangible things, and the questions about Carter's work ethic, are those worth 0.2, right, or 0.3? Does that put Carter? I think that's more the conversation, rather than like, well, they're graded the same in Walker as. I think it's about, does that, how they view that, could it be enough to close the gap between the two players?
Right, and just my opinion, like just going from predictive mode to just my take on the players, I don't think that those two players are particularly close.
I don't think they're that close either, but if they have them, are they close in the Patriots' eyes because the leadership makes them close, or are they close on tape, and then the leadership comes in and puts Walker over the top.
Because I just feel like, and it's not, I hate that the draft discourse makes us do this. Like, it sounds like I'm dumping on Jalen Walker because I'm making an argument for Abdul Carter, but it's not the goal. I'm not trying to dump on him, but I think there's little things that are getting overlooked when we say, oh, these guys are kind of just comparable players. Abdul Carter is 2 inches taller and 10 pounds heavier than Jalen Walker is. I would also just say that he's a lot more explosive and a lot more dynamic off the ball than Jalen Walker is as a pass rusher. Like, Abdul Carter has all of the tools to be like a Von Miller, Micah Parsons level pass rusher. Jalen Walker is going to have that in his back pocket, that he's a decent on the line edge rusher, but he's a linebacker. Like, he's truly an off the ball linebacker in terms of the position I think he's going to log the most snaps at. I would say it's probably going to be at the second level in the box. Now, unlike Hightower, Hightower had the size and the power and just the overwhelming, sledgehammer of play strength, that off-ball linebacker. Walker has closing speed. Like, Walker is a very good open field, bursty closing speed type of player that he can chase down guys in the open field. I don't know if that was necessarily Hightower's game, but when I watch Walker play off-ball linebacker, I see a lot of the same, like, compressing space, plugging gaps, firing downhill at the line of scrimmage. That's sort of his game, is just clogging the middle of the field. And then when you get into those pass rushing situations, he can rush off the edge a little bit. He can rush over the guard or the center and use quickness on the inside. So similar type of players, but Abdul Carter to me is in a different tier completely than Jalen Walker. So it would be disappointing to me a little bit if Jalen Walker was the pick at 4. I'm not saying it would be the worst pick in the world. We're not talking about, a Cole Strange level reaction from me here, but it would not be my pick. Like, that would not be my favorite.
I've used this line a lot for this year's class, and I know it kind of sounds like a cop-out, but I think it's fitting. It was my Mason Graham line for months. It still kind of is.
Yeah.
I don't think Carter would be, or I don't think Walker would be a bad pick. I don't think he's the best pick they could make.
Yeah.
He's not a bad pick. He's a good pick, but they would be leaving. There are better players available. And some people may say, well, then that means he's a bad pick because they didn't make the best pick.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean by it is, like, there's ways you can justify it where there is a path, I think, to Jalen Walker having a better career in New England than Abdul Carter would. There is a path to that. It's a much tougher path to get to, though, than the path to Carter's peak. The path to Carter being better than Walker.
It would have to be, like, work ethic related. Like, it would have to be work ethic, football character related.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why
there's no way his physical ceiling.
That's
is
why we're
higher
having
than
the
Abdul
conversation.
Carter's.
But, like, that's so he can get there. The pick can be justified.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, you're going to need a lot to go right for that. Yeah, I mean, you need a lot to go right for any draft pick to work out. It's not an easy process, but relatively speaking, there's more projecting you're doing with Jalen Walker, and this would apply to other guys.
Well, I wanted to kind of get to that because to me, I feel like this draft has turned into, a little bit Abdul Carter versus Jalen Walker, which again, I don't think is particularly close, but that's the conversations we're having.
I think the real conversation to have is Carter and Walker. And what I mean by, is Campbell and Walker.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I think if Carter's there, you take him, and I think if Carter's there, they will take him.
Right.
So that's not a conversation in the sense that we can discuss the top 3.
Yeah.
But we're not debating prospects. It's not a conversation relating to the Patriots. It's just wait and see. If Carter's gone and Hunter's gone, obviously putting that qualifier in there, I think Carter or Campbell and Walker is where you get. If I had to guess, this is just me guessing. There's no inside information here. If I had to guess, those are the top 2 players on their board. And I don't know which one would be 1 and 2, but I would guess it's those 2 and then everybody else.
So the other answers that he gave that people are dissecting a little bit here are obviously his response about left tackle and the fact that he sees starting caliber left tackle. Some people took that as him being a little bit lukewarm, not coming out and saying this is the next Jonathan Ogden. I don't think he would say that, even if there was another Jonathan Ogden in this draft. But it did stand out to me, and this is something that I've tried to reiterate a little bit about this draft at tackle, because I think there's some concern that if they don't draft a tackle at 4, then like last year, they're kind of going to miss the boat on true starting upside at left tackle.
That's a real concern.
He made it sound like he has a group, that there's a group. Now, it could be Campbell, Membu, and maybe Calvin Banks, end of group, right?
Right.
But I think we've talked a little bit about, and I see them as this, the Ariante Urseries, the Josh Connerleys of the world. I took that response, and I don't want to do body language doctor. Like, if you think his body language was off on that answer and he's out on the tackles, then that's your prerogative. I don't look that much into body language. I'm not a scientist in that respect.
He just kind of has the same body language across the board,
I just wouldn't look too much into that kind of stuff.
I think that's just how he is when he's dealing with the media.
But is there, I still think that it's very much in play that they draft who they feel is just the best player available at 4, regardless of position, and come back up for a Josh Simmons, an Ariante Ursery, a Josh Connerly, or maybe hope one of those guys falls to them at 38.
I think that's a possibility. Like, to me, there's 2 ways to read that answer. Do you still have the transcript up? I can pull it up, but
no, but I can pull it up. I just grabbed that one.
The full answer. Oh, look at 2 phones, Lazar over here.
Okay, all right.
The full answer. He gets asked specifically, is there a tackle worth taking at 4?
Yeah,
and he kind of, rather than answering whether or not there's a tackle worth taking at 4, he kind of gets into what he thinks a player worth the 4th overall pick is.
Yeah.
And he talks about a player in an impact position who can make an impact as a starter right away. And then he says, I think there are multiple starting tackles in the draft.
All right, so I got it. So I think that's really what you start to look for, impact players. When you start picking that high, what they're going to do for you, what's the impact, what's the position. You talk about premium positions. That's where you weigh all the circumstances
just to be clear,
making that pick.
He's not just talking. The question's about tackles, but he's not just talking about tackles there.
Right.
I think that's his philosophy for the 4th overall pick. And then he says, I think they're starting tackles in this draft. Yeah. Starting tackles in this draft doesn't mention 4. So you can read that one of 2 ways. Is his qualifier for the 4th overall pick instant starter?
Yeah.
In which case,
should be.
Starting tackles and 4th overall pick tackles would mean the same thing.
Right.
And we do know he talked highly about Campbell and Armand Membu at the NFL owners meetings. Yeah. That's one way you can interpret it. Sure. The other way you can interpret it is, they're starting tackles in the draft. It doesn't just have to be at 4 like there. So you can go one way or the other. I kind of heard it as the former. Maybe that's me going in with some preset bias about what I want them to do. I'll admit that. But I'm with you. If there are starting tackles past the 4th pick, there's not a lot. We've talked about how fast this thing drops off after Ariante Ursery.
Yeah.
Does he get to 38? Maybe. I really don't think Connerly's getting there.
No.
If Simmons gets to 38, it means his knee is bad, which I am. You guys know how I am on that. I'm very worried about that. I'm not against them not taking a tackle at 4. They can't let it come to them, though, like last year, because they will miss the run. I really think there's going to be a run on tackles again this year. And I'll say, I think there's going to be a run on tackles next year. I think this is going to continue to happen until the tackle shortage is over, which is going to take a few years to get there. So I think they have to be ready to move up. They have the ammunition to do this. And on the tackles, too, when we're talking about Simmons, it wasn't a tackle-specific answer, but he was asked by Andrew Callahan what lessons he learned just from his top draft picks in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And wasn't asked about injuries, but he mentioned just kind of factoring in injuries when you look at a player. And so with Simmons, who has an injury that is tough to come back from, and there are long-term, not just short-term implications. It's not just about when will he be healthy as a rookie, but will his knee hold up structurally in the long term, or will there be long-term durability issues because of this injury? That is something that they're going to consider. Caleb Fairley, I know, is the name that some people point to.
And there's also the Georgia tackle who I'm blanking on right now. His name Wilson, I think it was.
Isaiah
Wilson.
I think he was here for like a second on the practice squad.
He was a later first round pick than Fairley, but they took a real chance on him, both injury and football character, and that goes down as, not to pick on Vrabel, but that goes down as one of the worst first-round picks of the last decade.
Yeah,
or so.
he
the guy
was there
didn't
a
even
year.
Play. Yeah, he didn't even really play. for the Titans. So they took on some risk with those picks, and both of those guys had injury red flags. Fairley had huge injury red flags. What was a top 15, top 12 talent in his draft just based off the film, but was significant injury red flags, and neither one of those players worked out.
So his was a back.
Yeah.
Fairley's was a back. Wilson's I think it was an ankle. I don't remember exactly what it was.
There was also with Wilson, there were
some football character issues,
but there was a lot going on.
But part
with
of
that player.
it too was he had an injury that was chronic, which means that it's not something that Celtics are going through this right now with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
It's not something that you hurt it heals and you're done. It's not like a broken arm, right? It's something that is just going to kind of last and always be an issue. I'm not a doctor, but from what I've seen, like medical people say, this injury that Simmons has can have, not guaranteed, can have some lasting impacts.
Yeah.
So if that's the guy you're going to draft at left tackle, I've made the comp before, Malcolm Mitchell. When Malcolm Mitchell was healthy, he was a good player. And I think when Josh Simmons is healthy, he's a really good player. Is he going to be healthy enough to justify a first-round pick? That's what I worry about. I haven't seen the medicals. I wouldn't know what to make of them if I did. But, you got to... I think he's one where... I think sometimes teams really like a player, and maybe the doctors tell them, be careful, but, they see the tape and they... Simmons is a player I'd hope they listen to the doctors on. And it sounds like Vrabel, from his experience in Tennessee, understands that.
Yeah, especially early. Like, it's one thing to take an injury flyer on a guy late.
Oh, yeah, no. And this is coming from the same guy who has said, I want them to take Seth McLaughlin, who's torn Achilles. That's no joke of an injury either.
Yeah.
That's in the 5th round. Have fun with it. In the top 50, it's a very different conversation.
All right, so the last thing that stood out to me from this press conference, and then I want to move on to our My Guys segment on defense this week, was obviously the very end answer at the very, very end about Joe Milton and the trade of Joe Milton. And I think that if you just take his answer at face value, and look, he's not going to come out and say that Joe Milton is a bad locker room guy and it's not a good fit with Drake May. I don't think he would come out and say that publicly. But if we just take the answer at face value about the reps, I kind of understand where he's coming from, that when you go into a camp with an entrenched starting quarterback that is not in an open competition of any kind with anybody else, you go into that camp giving like 90% of the meaningful reps to that quarterback, especially when the quarterback is a second-year guy, like especially when it's a young quarterback in a league like Drake May. So in order to continue to develop Joe Milton, I think he was just saying that they're just outside of maybe preseason games where they wouldn't want to play Drake May, they wouldn't want to risk injury with Drake May. There wasn't a ton of reps to go around. If you just take that at face value, I think the only thing that I took away from that, because I've kind of closed the book on Joe Milton, he's not here anymore,
right?
Is that them drafting another quarterback, at least in the top 150, that they might have some investment in and they might feel compelled to develop. It just doesn't seem realistic if they're going into this saying Drake May is going to get 90%. Josh Dobbs is our true backup. He's our QB2 as the veteran backup. This sounds to me more like, okay, if there's a quarterback in the 7th round, they have 2 7th-round picks. If they really like a quarterback at the end of the draft in the 7th round, sure, take a flyer or whatever. But I think they're kind of looking more towards that like camp arm territory of like, let's just get a third quarterback in here for training camp.
You need 3 quarterbacks to operate.
Yeah.
You probably need 4, really. Ideally, you have 4. So they're going to add quarterbacks. But yeah, it's going to be super late in the draft, UDFA. But it goes back to something I talked about after the trade, and I think kind of qualified it. I think a lot of people are looking at it as, well, why would you trade your backup quarterback if Drake May gets hurt? They viewed him as the 3rd string.
Right.
He was going to be the 3rd string quarterback, emergency game day quarterback again. Dobbs was going to be the backup. And so, because I think some people were confused, why would he request a trade if he wants a chance to compete and he goes to Dallas where Dak Prescott is ingrained as the starter? Because he just wanted a chance to compete for the backup job, which I don't think they were going to give him here. He should beat out Will Grier in Dallas and Dak gets hurt. So who knows? But I don't think they viewed it as they were trading their backup quarterback. They were trading the 3rd string guy. They were trading the emergency game day guy. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's another story. I would have had him as the backup over Josh Dobbs. I think Josh Dobbs is there in the room, experienced guy like another coach. I would have had Milton as the backup. And, assuming he continued to progress and all that. Showed it on the field and kept up. But I think they viewed him as the 3rd quarterback.
Yeah, it just looking, how it pertains to the draft. I think there are just some mock drafts out there that I've seen with, a Riley Leonard, for example, or, we did a mock draft yesterday before the Vrabel presser that I took Curtis Rourke in the 7th round, just as a flyer. I think that's still on the table potentially.
Curtis Rourke makes a lot of sense.
Got 2 7th-round picks at the end. You're really just trying to get ahead of undrafted free agency at that point. Maybe they still do it at that point in the draft, but I just look at that quarterback spot as truly the 3rd quarterback spot, like you're saying, and I'll just take it a step further. It's basically just a camp arm. It's somebody that they can maybe stash on the practice squad all year long. So I wouldn't necessarily expect them to be making any more real investments at quarterback, in terms of top 150 picks at that position. So did you have any other big things that I missed? I mean, those were kind of my big takeaways. I think that's pretty much it.
Again, we didn't get as much out of that as we usually do. And it's not me complaining.
Yeah.
Right? Vrabel just has a different style.
Yeah.
The running back thing was a little interesting. I'll add that.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely left the door open there for Genty. Like, he didn't close it and say, no, we're analytically driven. We don't care about running backs like, I would have said.
Well, he did give a whole answer on analytics.
Yeah.
Which I know you loved.
Yeah, it was good.
But he did say you got to go back to the film. You got to confirm it all with the film, which as long as you're doing that,
I
that's
have always
paraphrasing.
Said that the way that he talked about analytics is always the way that I think that you should apply analytics.
But if you're going to vouch for that community, you have to vouch for the entire community.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. That's how it works.
The analytics is a way in football. I'm not talking about other sports. I don't know enough about other sports.
This is like you pinning Dan Campbell on me for being like a football guy.
Analytics are a way to provide context to what you're seeing on tape. So you watch the film, just like Vrabel said, you watch the film and you say, this guy seems to be really good after the catch, right? Like that's a strength of his game. Well, you might say that, and then you might look at the analytics and he's 25th out of 26 qualified receivers in the draft in yards after the catch per reception. And so then you just have to go back to the tape and say, well, where's the disconnect here? Was it the routes he was being asked to run? Is it the scheme? Is it, where he's playing on the field? Like, why is the juice that I see after the catch not translating to the numbers? Whereas sometimes you might say, this guy's really good after the catch, and then the numbers say he's really good after the catch, and now we have a guy that we can say is elite after the catch. Luther Burden,
sure,
Kyle Williams, someone like that. Great. That's all it's all about. I thought his answer about, the injury prediction was really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know as much about that stuff as I do about like the nerd math, but like,
are you talking about the one about Tennessee?
Well, he mentioned that they have predictive models about durability and how and if guys have prior injury in college, like are those injuries, to your point about Simmons's knee, like are those injuries going to linger into the pros? Does that set up potentially injuries down the road? That stuff is newer, I would say, in terms of the sports science, but it's cool. Like it's some innovative tech that's actually working.
In medicine, you want to use all the math you want in the medicine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That, fine. Go for that. But back to the running back thing, I thought it was interesting because the question was like, do you have a philosophy on like running backs in the top 10? And he basically said, no, I don't. But they have to be able to do all these things. And he basically just described Ashton Genty.
Yeah.
But then the last thing he said was, and what the team's prior convictions are. So he basically said, the question was, do you believe a running back should go in the top 10? And he basically said, if a running back is really good, if a team is comfortable taking them in the top 10, they should. So, yeah, like he kind of, the answer for me was, well, he was like, Ashton, the answer is basically, if a running back was going to go in the top 10, Ashton Genty is that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do it, but it's something to remember if like Genty becomes a free agent in a few years or requests a trade or whatever.
The interesting thing to me about his answer was that he mentioned receiving upside and like pass catching.
Yeah.
And not that he's a zero as a pass catcher, but like Derrick Henry is not necessarily James White.
They didn't take Derrick Henry in the first round.
Yeah.
And they repeatedly, when Henry was there, brought in smaller backs to catch the football.
Yeah.
They had Deion Lewis there.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of my point.
Yeah.
Is like, so Derrick Henry, and I know he wasn't a first round pick, but Derrick Henry was their offense in Tennessee, rightfully so.
Yeah.
They built the entire thing around him. Now, the one thing that Derrick Henry, I think separates him from other running backs that we've seen is there's a clear correlation between play action success and Derrick Henry being on the field. Like the Titans numbers with Derrick Henry in the backfield on play action were just insane for like a 3 or 4 year period because obviously defenses are stacking the box.
So running
and selling
sets
out.
up the pass. What a concept.
When you have Derrick Henry, sure. Like when you have Joe Schmo running back behind the quarterback, it's not the same thing.
So it's worth investing in a good running back.
I would say Derrick Henry. My point was that Derrick Henry is kind of his own thing in that regard.
What were the Eagles? Play action numbers this year? I actually don't know off the top of my head. I might be
they're a
burying
gun team.
here.
It's different.
That's true.
But yeah, sure. Fine. But I thought that was interesting that he included pass catching. I did go back, semi recently and watched, some of Genti's 2023 tape to get the pass catching feel for him a little bit better.
The ball a
lot more in 23. I still think that he's more of like an underneath, sneak out into the flat, check down over the middle type of pass catcher. I don't know if he's a dynamic receiver. Like, I don't know if you're going to be mismatch aligning him in the slot or out wide or having him run all these vertical routes from the backfield, wheels fitting into the seam, things like that. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily his game, but he certainly is an adequate receiver.
I would say for the basic wide receiver, for the basic running back pass catching skills you're looking for, he's good.
Yeah.
Like he's really good at that stuff, but he's not a guy like I wouldn't put him in the same category as a guy like Bashard Smith or the Quint Allen or Woody Marks, where you're going to kind of use him as a hybrid wide receiver, like that James White stuff. But for the base stuff you're going to ask a running back to do in the passing game, both as a receiver and as a blocker, I would say he's not just baseline, he's better in those areas.
All right, let's transition into my guys here, and then the second hour of the show, we'll open up the calls and the emails, so just bear with us here for a few more minutes. Hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals for the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And spring has sprung, so why not spruce up your space with Bob's Discount Furniture? Embrace the new season by shopping fresh furniture finds from Bob's trendy, top-rated, and affordable collection of beautiful bedroom sets, high-quality dining styles, and feature-packed sofas, plus tons of accent decor and outdoor must-have. So get a spring on the season's latest style with saving big only at Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. A lot of spring and sprung and season in that one. All right, let's get into my guys on defense. We changed it a little bit up this week to get a little bit faster through these guys. We spent a lot of time on this last week.
Well, this is like the draft preview. This is like one of our biggest shows of the year.
I know, but I'm trying to move it along a little bit quicker. So we do have the 5 positions here, interior defensive line, edge, linebackers, cornerback, and safety.
We got to do kickers too.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. They're going to take a kicker. So he told us last week. Springer told us last week.
Let's start with the defensive line. My first guy on this list, I tried to do early, late. I kind of cheated in some areas.
I'm doing day 2, day 3.
I tried to do that as well.
We all know who the first round guys are on defense. It's Carter and it's Walker.
And so my defensive lineman on day 2, Alfred Collins from Texas.
Oh,
who
good pick.
I feel like is your kind of guy.
He is. That was going to be my. I had a couple, but he was going to be my pick.
So 6'6".
Yep.
330.
Yep.
36-inch arms. Like, this is just an absolute monster.
Can't teach size, baby.
Monster of a man. Now, if the Patriots were in a traditional Belichick 2-gapping defense, like Alfred Collins as a 2-gapping 3-4 end is like exactly what he fits. So I'm not sure it's an exact system fit for what the Patriots are going to do now. But I still look at him in the Patriots' current defense with Vrabel in their new system. Like, can he play nose tackle at that size?
Can he play that Jeffrey Simmons role?
Is a 3 technique? I mean, like, maybe, but I think that Milton Williams is going to play that role. But like, what I look at with Alfred Collins is put him, in the shade in the A gap and just let him hold the A gap for you. Like, he's not going to be moved. I mean, that guy's an absolute mammoth. Like, he's huge. He's got great length. He knows how to use it. I think the one thing that really stood out to me though, watching his film, that was exciting, that got me really excited about the player, his motor. Like, he's
that dude loves physicality.
He runs hot, and to be that big and play that hard for that many snaps in a game is sometimes a question mark, and he is just a mean dude.
So obviously not It's not Vrabel. Like, oddly, we've made all these Tennessee comps with Vrabel. This might be a first for this offseason. I'm gonna make a Tennessee comp that doesn't involve Mike Vrabel.
Okay.
Simmons next to Tavondre Sweat, because he's got some Tavondre Sweat in his game.
That's not a bad one.
He's playing that role in that Texas defense, right? He's the next guy up.
Yeah.
Like, is that Milton Williams and Alfred Collins?
I really like Alfred Collins a lot.
I do.
I just thought that you can't teach size, you can't teach power, and you can't teach effort. And he checks all three of those boxes.
So since you went to him,
yeah,
I should go Deion Walker. He's really fallen now. That one sucks. I was so ready to be. He plays standing up at 340 pounds. Like, come on.
But that's the problem is he, like, literally and figuratively, he plays standing up. Like, his pad level is a big issue.
He plays like a player like 50 pounds smaller than he is. And that is both a good thing and a bad thing.
He's got to get his pads down.
You know, sometimes there's like those cats that grow up in a house with all dogs, and the dog grows up in a house with all cats, and the dog just like thinks it's a cat.
Yeah,
that's kind of like like he plays like a 280-pound speed rusher.
Yeah,
but he's 340 pounds.
Yeah.
It's anyway. So instead of that, I'll go similar guy, Jamari Caldwell.
Yeah,
similar. Probably going to go a little bit later than Collins, but same thing. One of these hyper athletic. I don't think he's 330. I think he's in the 320s.
Yeah.
But a guy that can kind of do some similar things.
Wide body. Just a big butt.
Well, you know the Bill Belichick Kirby Smart story about the 40, right?
No.
Oh, have you not heard this?
I might have.
So Kirby Smart told us at a coaching clinic. This was a few years ago, but it's on Twitter if you want to go find it. Yeah. And I don't remember if Kirby was with Bill.
The big butt thing.
Yeah, Bill wanted to stand at the starting line at the 40.
This is a Bill Parcells thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
To see which lineman have the biggest ass when they get down in the stands.
Yeah, no, that started with Parcells, who, by the way, Parcells, I mean, people know this, but I'm not breaking any news. Parcells is an amazing talent evaluator.
Yeah.
Like, one of the best talent evaluators.
He's pretty good at shopping for the groceries.
Yeah, that's out there. I mean, obviously, he's going into the Patriots Hall of Fame. And a big reason why is because he drafted a lot of the first pillars of Dynasty 1.0.
Yeah.
You know, he drafted most of those guys. He was the first guy to talk about the behinds and making sure that those linemen have a big butts and they cannot lie. All right, my next guy here, day 3. Interior defensive lineman Tim Smith from Alabama. Really thought he stood out at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile back in January. He's been on my list ever since then. Heavy-handed, aggressive, up the field interior rusher. Can stop the run, can shoot gaps, can beat guys laterally to the spot. Really good upper body strength. I feel like he's another one of these dudes. Like Alfred Collins is kind of like the second round version. Yeah. Tim Smith is, to me, the day 3 version. If the Patriots are looking for that true interior run stuffer to pair next to Milton Williams and Barmore and Keon White and just add to the rotation, Tim Smith, I've been trying all draft season, mock drafts, big board to find a place to write and talk about Tim Smith.
There's always one guy that, like, I want to get into mock drafts and I don't.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked out. But I think that Tim Smith is a Patriot type player for sure.
So my like day 3 Alfred Collins guy, day 1's Kenneth Grant, day 2's Alfred Collins, Jamar Caldwell, is Cam Jackson from Florida.
Yeah, similar type of
another
player.
Guy who had a Senior Bowl. But I'm going to go with J.J. Pegues, Felger Maz big board pick.
Nice.
He's a project player.
Yeah.
He's a project player. He's not a guy that might make an impact right away. He's supposed to go on day 3, so that's okay. But really, really good athlete for his size. So I was trying to look. He measured in at 320 at the Senior Bowl, but then was 309 at the Combine. So I don't know where he's going to play in the NFL. I would like him to play around 315, 320, but I think part of the reason he took some of that size off is, in addition to playing on the defensive line, and he can play multiple positions.
That's probably his best trade.
Well, or is it the fact that they would use, and you think, all right, so I'm going to say they played him on offense. You're thinking 320-pound guy on offense, lead fullback like the Patriots used to use Richard Seymour. No. They used him as a running back. They used him as a short yardage running back. He had 21 carries last year. 18 of them went for first downs, including 7 touchdowns. He can carry the football. He ran some routes at the Combine and didn't look out of place. So if you put some weight back on, who knows where that's at, but Can he give you like a Patrick Ricard kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I know I've compared Robbie Utes to Patrick Ricard, but this is much more similar with the body type.
Yeah.
And I think he has the potential to be a multi-positional, 3-down rotational player on defense. He's got a ways to go to get there. Like, he's winning on pure athleticism right now. The technical part of his game needs to be refined, certainly. But this coaching staff is good with that. And if you give him a year or two, I think he can be a really, really fun piece. I think he can be a guy you can get really creative with and can make an impact on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I like it. His versatility was the number one thing I wrote down.
Yeah.
Just in my notes about him. I really felt like his speed to power was kind of a foundational move for him, though. He's got that ability to really roll his hips and convert speed to power in the pass rush, and that's going to give him a nice foundation. Maybe you add like an arm over or swim or something like that to just complement that. I liked his tape a lot too as an early day 3, mid day 3 kind of guy. Impressive player in terms of the movement skills. All right, let's go to the edge. I kind of cheated. I put 2 day 2 edge guys because I like them both so much. I couldn't decide. So my first one is Femi Oladejo from UCLA. I just feel like he's a Vrabel type of player. Explosiveness, play strength, effort, finish, versatility, played off the ball early on in his career at UCLA, then moved to the edge this past season. A great Senior Bowl week. That's another one of those guys that got on my radar down in Mobile. But what I really liked about him, effort, finish, explosiveness off the ball, and I just am clamoring for the Patriots to give Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel one of these balls of clay on the edge. Like, I don't necessarily need their edge pick to be an early, top 50 selection on a guy that's already finished product. Like, I'm okay with taking on some developmental upside there at that position. I think Oladejo, the guy I compared him to, is Boye Mafe out in Seattle. Like, you give him a year or two to develop underneath Vrabel and Terrell Williams and Harold Landry and Chazon and Anthony Jennings and Keon White are going to be playing a lot of the snaps there in 2025. By 2026, 2027, like, Oladejo might be one of the better day 2 edge rushers out of this class. He's got a ton of tools.
All right, I'll go the opposite for day 2. I'll go with the guy that's ready, Jack Sawyer.
Yeah.
I've been on this since the beginning. Their kind of guy, culture, tone setter, physical. What's the word they've used to describe their defense so many times? Violence.
Yeah.
Right? Plays with violence.
Both these guys play with violence.
He's a guy you can put opposite. Kaylavon Chason's going to be your speed rusher. He's power on the other side. The Ohio State thing, all of it. He's such a fit. He is everything that this offseason has kind of been pointed towards.
Absolutely. The last one I had here, and I can't get this guy out of my head, even though I don't think he's necessarily a great system fit anymore. But Josiah Stewart from Michigan, just twitched up rusher, really undersized for the position, probably pigeonholed into like a 3-4 outside linebacker, situational pass rusher type of role, which is why maybe it doesn't make as much sense anymore for the Patriots. But I just loved watching Josiah Stewart at the Senior Bowl against USC last year. Just absolutely ate up the USC tackles. Great first step explosiveness, great bend, just an absolute twitched up mover. I think he's going to be a good pro. I think he's going to outplay his size. Like, Marcus Jones, we had him in here on Patriots Unfiltered yesterday. Like, he's like the defensive back version of this. Josiah Stewart's going to be like the edge rusher version of a guy who's undersized, so he'll probably go in like the 3rd or 4th round because of that, but is going to just be a really good football player regardless of the size.
All right, you want the day 3 version of that guy then?
Sure.
Colin Oliver, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Really productive for the Cowboys for 3 years. Missed most of last year. I think it was a foot injury, right? Yeah, foot injury. So he's another one. There's an odd number of players in this draft, like more than usual, that missed significant time last season, like in the season leading up to the draft. So there's value there, right? And he's going to have to come back. He's undersized. I have it here. He is 6'2", 240 with 30-inch arms, but he flies off the edge, great speed, good bend, and he's had the production. So, like, he's kind of proven it. He's probably never going to be more than just a 3rd down rusher, but if you want a guy to develop in that package, he's going to go later because it's a deep class, and he was hurt. And by the way, there's spoiler alert, he's not the only Oklahoma State player that fits this description. There could be some value there, and he could be an interesting find for them.
I think I know where you're going. It might be at the next position.
It is at the next. But the other guy I'd give you two. How much have you done on Kaimon Rucker?
He's on my list.
From UNC.
I have like a couple more of these guys to go.
I'm not sure what to make of him. I really liked him in college, but it's tough. are projecting him. I thought I'd like because when I watch him in the fall, I'm watching him as a college player mostly, and like I'm mentally filing it away, but like it's tougher to project him to the NFL than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I have like 5 or 6 more edge guys I want to get to before the draft. He's
right, so
one
maybe
of
we'll
them.
cover that next week.
Barron Sorrell from Texas, Savion Jones from LSU, Quay Robinson from Alabama, who's getting some love now. As just a edge rusher, pure speed edge rusher. So there's a couple more of those guys. All right, let's move over to linebacker. My day 2 linebacker, Demetrius Knight from South Carolina.
Yeah.
Shot out of a cannon, just an explosive downhill trigger.
Great athlete.
His game against Alabama, had it all. Just chasing down Jalen Milroe, and closing from depth on Jalen Milroe and just tackling him in space. There's not a whole lot of guys that can get Jalen Milroe on the ground. You watch Jalen Milroe as a runner is elite. And Demetrius Knight's able to do that. Like I said, physical downhill striker, take on linemen at the point of attack, run guys down in the flats. When he's moving downhill, he's moving at a great speed. And I just love his aggressiveness, his attack mindset. I think he's going to fit right in the NFL.
So I feel like I've talked about a lot of these guys. You guys know I like Knight. I like Chris Paul. I like Danny Stutzman. I like Barry Carter. Vrabel's going to love Stutzman.
Yeah.
Stutzman could be Patriot.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'll go. I'm going to give you 2 day 3 guys. So one, this is what I was saying at Nick Martin, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
They had him in here for a 30
They
visit.
did. It's a little different than Oliver because Oliver had played. I think he was a 3-year starter. He played a lot for 3 years. I don't know if he was a starter, but he had a regular role. Martin really didn't play at all until 2023. He was freaking unbelievable. 140 tackles all over the field. Looked like one of the best athletes on the field, whoever the opponent was. I mean, was flying around, regularly getting to the football, making plays on the ball, 3-down player, all of that. And then two games into the season last year, he gets hurt and he loses the rest of the season. I don't know if you have his injury, Evan. I don't have it pulled up. But
Nick Martin's.
Yeah. So
I can look it up. I'm sure the Beast has it.
Yeah, you talk about a ball of clay.
Right knee.
Right knee. Okay. So the guys that just have 1 year of experience, whether it be injury related or something else, it always worries me because as we've seen in the past, you can have one really good year in college football, the pieces can come together, and that can just be kind of it. So, this isn't me telling you he's going to be a great player. This is me telling you there's a lot there that I like, that I'd like to see them work with. And the fact that he's a projected 5th, 6th round pick, that's where you should be taking a guy like that.
Yeah.
So people are going to hear this and say Cameron McGrone and roll their eyes. Yeah, he is kind of similar to Cameron McGrone. If anything, he's a little less experienced than Cameron McGrone was.
I get a lot of heat for liking Cameron McGrone.
I'll take that flyer every time.
Yeah.
If you take that flyer 4 times,
it was the right pick.
Or 5 times, you get one stud player out of it. And I'm talking about in the 5th, 6th, 7th round.
Yeah.
I'm fine. You want to take one flyer like that a year, especially if you have they have 8 picks?
Yep.
9 picks, go for it. So Nick Martin is a guy put on that list, especially because of the fit. I think they're in a position where and that was the weird thing about McGrone. He wasn't their kind of linebacker. He didn't fit into their defense. I think Nick Martin fits really well given the linebacker additions they've made. He plays the position the way they want it played. There's going to be less of a growing curve for him.
He was my 51st guy on my big board.
Really?
I wanted to get him on there because I tried to get everybody that they had in for a 30 visit.
Okay.
Reportedly had in for a 30 visit. He's one of them. And to your point, the way that the body type that they looked for at linebacker, that it's Nick Martin.
Well, the body type and the athleticism. He's a really good athlete.
Yeah, he checks all the boxes for them. The guy that I had on day 3 was Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame because I just think he's a throwback linebacker.
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys that's going to, move laterally, follow the ball, good instincts, going to be around the football a lot as a tackler, going to clean up in the run game. I believe that Jack Kaiser is going to be a tackling machine at the next level. He might not be the most impactful linebacker. He's not going to be someone that's going to make splash plays all over the field like a Demetrius Knight might. But Jack Kaiser, I think, is going to be a guy that's going to rack up tackles just being in the action.
Also team captain. And I think any line, and as we go, edge rushers, linebackers, corners, safeties,
Yeah.
when you're getting to day 3, that special teams experience is important. He has a ton of special teams experience.
Yep, special
Speaking
teams
of,
guy. Yep.
my day 3 linebacker, Sean Dolak from Buffalo. I don't know how much you know about Sean Dolak,
I don't.
Evan.
You
This
can
is the kind
educate
of guy that would be a little off your board here. So Sean Dolak, tell me if this sounds like a Mike Vrabel player. Sean Dolak began his career at Buffalo as a walk-on.
Yeah.
Now, 5 years later, he is a consensus All-American.
Oh.
The production is absolutely insane. I think he had 160 tackles last year, had 160 tackles 2 years before that. He was hurt in between. He's kind of undersized, 6'1", 225. He's not necessarily as big and as strong as some of these guys are, but plays with great instincts, plays with a great motor. Again, captain, walk on to All-American, that whole thing. He might not get drafted. He might be UDFA. You talk about a guy that can come in and be a core special teamer for years, certainly has that projection, and then maybe he fills in a little bit of linebacker as well. When we talk about a Vrabel guy, like I kind of said before, Jack Sawyer is everything that this offseason has been pointing towards. Sean Dolak, the tiebreaker there might just be Ohio State, because Sean Dolak has that as well. Isn't necessarily going to be like a big defensive weapon, but he seems like the kind of guy they're going to want on the football team.
All right, corners. I'm sticking with the Notre Dame theme here.
Okay.
And going with Ben Morrison from Notre Dame as my day 2 guy.
There's great value there.
So he's coming off the injury, which I think is a little bit why he's not getting as much buzz as some of these other guys at the cornerback position. But his man coverage tape, like his ability to stick to receivers in man coverage, I'll take that against pretty much any non-Travis Hunter corner in this class. Like I thought his game against Stanford in particular was great. I mean, he was just in everybody's hip pocket for 4 straight quarters. Feisty man coverage corner, extremely sticky and glued to the route break at all times. He is a pattern matching machine. Like he's not someone that's going to necessarily make a ton of plays on the ball. He's just going to take his guy out of the game, and you're not going to be able to throw him the football. I am surprised, and maybe it's just a type thing. I also think it's a flavor thing, and I think it's also this time of year a lot of people tend to gravitate towards guys that have big interception numbers or pick sixes or whatever the case may be. I'm a man coverage guy. It's probably just from being a Patriots person, but I look at Ben Morrison as one of the top man coverage corners in this draft.
Well, he was a first round pick until the hip injury.
Yeah.
So he's another guy. It's another guy where like the medicals are going to be a part of the evaluation.
Yep.
I should probably go Darian Porter or Siobhan Revel. Like that's so my kind of corner.
Yeah.
I think I saw Revel comped to Tariq Woolen.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with Revel a tad.
How? There's nothing to see. He's played like 14 games.
I know, but you got to watch something. And
he's a pure projection.
Yeah, he's a little stiff. Like he's a big stiff dude, but he's a linearly explosive guy. Like I could see it in like the right matchups, right? Like
he's a zone corner, which is tough.
Yeah, I just didn't necessarily love the transitions. Like I thought he was a little stiff in the hips, but
I think that's something you learn as you play, and he just hasn't played a lot of football.
Yeah, it's possible.
Like the injury this year killed him. So those are the guys I'd usually go towards. Siobhan Revel. Darian Porter, 6'3", 200 ran a 4.3.
He's just like 90 years old.
And another guy that's a zone corner.
Yeah.
Jacob Parrish.
Yeah.
Jacob Parrish, there's a lot of John Jones there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of John Jones. Can play the slot. Like he'll be primarily a slot corner in the NFL. Can play the boundary, can play safety, plays bigger than his size, physical, really smart football player. That's just the kind of guy you want in your secondary. I think versatility... All right, versatility is probably more important on the offensive line than anywhere else. After that, I think versatility in the secondary is more important. The more you can do in the secondary, not only does it help you keep depth, it helps you disguise coverages, right? Because if a guy can line up anywhere and realistically play any of those spots, the defense doesn't know what to expect, or the offense doesn't know what to expect. So I think Parrish can come in here, give them depth in the slot, could potentially start if Marcus Jones leaves. He's in a contract here. I'd like them to keep Marcus Jones, but he gets hurt a lot too, right? That sort of thing. And I just think he can be a useful player for them.
I had one corner on my big board.
Yeah.
It was Jacob Parrish. Like I feel like Jacob Parrish to play the slot.
What about Bilal Cohn?
I had one corner on my big board.
But you said the visits. They met with Bilal Cohn.
And it was Jacob Parrish,
All right.
who also they reportedly had on the visit.
Yep.
And I just... you explained it. He's Jonathan Jones 2.0 to me. And to play the slot, Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez on the outside, Jacob Parrish in the slot makes a whole lot of sense. I think, Jonathan Jones is probably the right comp. There's a little bit of Trent McDuffie in there if you want to go ceiling, like if you want to be really high on the player. But that's the archetype, right? A guy that's probably at his best, playing inside or moving around the formation with like a Z receiver, the pure route runner of the group, and then occasionally play on the outside. But I love Jacob Parrish's film. He also puts his nose in there in the run game at his size pretty well, and a scrappy guy too. So I was really high on him too. Day 3 cornerback, Mac McWilliams.
Yes.
UCF. Had to do it.
That's kind of day 3. I was literally about to say the other John Jones comp in this draft.
Yeah, John Jones. I kind of see a little Jack Jones in him too.
Who did I say? There was somebody, I think it was Kobe Bryant. I saw Zerline has as the Jack Jones comp.
Yeah, so Mac McWilliams is, again, a slot corner, probably a nickel at the NFL level, maybe a safety, even nickel safety if you want to call it that.
Yeah, he played a little deep safety at Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he can play man-to-man in the slot, though. Had a really good Senior Bowl week, was really feisty, really sticky in coverage, play man-to-man, run around with slot receivers, I should say, all day long. I really liked Mac McWilliams in Mobile. I thought he came in with an edge. I thought he came in with some fire, some competitives, that alpha corner mentality. Like he'd break up a pass and you let him hear about it. I like those types of guys. It doesn't hurt to have those types of guys ever. So if Jacob Parrish is kind of the day 2 version of this, I would say Mac McWilliams is the day 3.
So you covered it all there, and I love his ability to play safety too.
Yeah.
I am curious what you thought. We talked a bit about him last week of Denzel Burke.
Yeah, so Denzel Burke, to me, was... I had some questions about his top-end speed, his long speed to carry verticals on the outside. It kind of reminds me a lot of Shaun Wade, like in terms of his career path, and maybe it's just the Ohio State
No, it's
thing.
very similar.
It was a really high-projected player early on in his career, had an injury, had some issues.
Well, not just projected high. He was a freshman All-American.
Yeah,
he was the first true freshman to start a game, to start the season opener for Ohio State since former Patriot Andy Katzenmoyer.
Oh, that's an interesting stat.
I just wanted to get Andy Katzenmoyer.
Yeah, I know.
In there.
And
I've been doing the show for like 3 years. We've never mentioned Andy Katzenmoyer.
I feel like Denzel
Katzenmoyer.
Burke is one of those guys that's going to play in the league for a while, but he might not ever be like a standout player, but he's going to be able to play a lot of snaps. A comp that I came up with him was kind of like a Jalen Mills type, right? Like he's just that sort of player, like not necessarily exactly the style of play, but just like the usage of like, okay, this is going to be an NFL defensive back for a while, but is he ever going to be like a number 1 corner? Probably not, but he's going to belong on an NFL field.
Yeah.
Those were your corners?
I mean, if I had to give another one, I like Bilal Cohn. I don't know how much sense he makes for them at this point. They need slot guys. They're actually pretty good on size, but who's the I'm blanking on the name now. There is another slot guy. Jabbar Muhammad from Oregon. Played on the boundary almost exclusively in college. Was part of both the Washington and Oregon teams that went to the playoff. He's going to move in the inside the next level. Really good when the ball's in the air. He's not the stickiest cover corner, but he's fine. But he does a good job of recovering, and then when the ball's in the air and at the catch point, especially for a guy's size, he's very, very competitive. So I think there's some real untapped potential. If you can improve his cover skills and kind of get him, in the film room and recognizing patterns and things like that, and just maybe work on his footwork. I don't know exactly what it is that his cover skills aren't there. Those are just a couple things that you can do to improve it. Like I think there's some real untapped potential, but he is small. He's going to have to play in the slot.
Okay, safety. See, this is a good pace. All right, we didn't take an hour and a half to get through all the different positions. This is a nice.
Well, we are doing
pace
kickers. I don't care what you say. We're doing kickers.
My day 2 safety might be the same as yours, but I just love this player so much. I had to give him the hype. Andrew Makuba, from Texas, is just an absolute dog.
That's the guy I've been screaming about them getting for 2 years now since Devin McCourty retired. Is that not the exact guy?
So for whatever reason, like I feel like I'm much higher on him than a lot of other people are.
He keeps falling down the consensus board like every week. What are you people looking at?
I think it's because of the size. Like I would think, like he's not the biggest guy.
I'm not super worried. How big was Devin McCourty? I'm not super worried about size of deep safety.
5'11".
Fine.
Yeah.
Can you cover ground? That's all I care about. Not all, but like
just absolute shot out of a cannon trigger to the football.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's ranging over the top, filling the alley in the run game, screen game, whatever the case may be. That interception that he made against Georgia was just ridiculous. Insane ball skills, has that ability to rotate, down into the robber role or play the deep part of the field or play split safety. I just think that he's going to be a hell of a football player. That another one of those guys that might not have the size, speed, measurables that everybody goes ooh and ah over, but is going to vastly outplay the physical tools that that are at his disposal, with instincts and just feel for the game and just talent, in terms of football talent. So I can't say enough good things about Andrew Makuba. I think he's a heck of a safety, and I put Billy Bowman kind of in the same sort of bucket here with those two guys. I thought both those guys were awesome watches.
Yeah, Makuba's one of my favorite players in this draft.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Not one of the best, but I think he's really good at what he does, and the fact he's getting slept on. Since you took him for day 2, I'll just throw Xavier Watson there, another guy that I think could play the back end for them.
Yeah.
But I like Makuba. And Bowman now is getting day 2 looks, apparently. I thought he was 106, great. But now I guess some people think he could go on day 2. I think Bowman's a little different. Bowman he's shorter, but he's got more muscle on him.
Yeah, he's a little bit more compact.
I think he plays the game more physically, more with an edge. He's more, to me, that hybrid. He's kind of similar to Mac McWilliams, where I think they're both hybrid slot corner deep safeties. But I think McWilliams is more primarily a corner. I think Bowman's more primarily a safety. Andrew Makuba, we've talked about this role.
Andrew Makuba's a playmaker. That guy's going to be around the football.
So we've talked about this deep safety role for a few years now, and we talk about it
every time.
We talk about it in two ways.
Yeah.
Devin McCourty and Daron Harmon. And there's the guy that's going to be out there, and you're going to play single high a lot because this guy's on the field 70, 80, 90% of the time. Devin McCourty was leading the Patriots in snaps every year. And then there's also, all right, if you don't get that guy, can you get a guy like a Daron Harmon who can come on the field and just play it situationally when you're in clear passing situations, 2-minute drill, 3rd and long, things like that. So to me, Billy Bowman is a situational deep safety. Billy Bowman is not going to be a guy that's going to play 90% of your defensive snaps. He's going to be out there 50 to 60% of the time. He's going to play the role really well, but you're not going to want to overdo it. Andrew Makuba, I'm fine if Andrew Makuba, maybe not as a rookie, but Andrew Makuba to me is a guy that can
full-time
play
player.
The Devin McCourty role and be on player. And not come off the field. Bowman to me is more situational.
So the guy that I looked at, and
I should say rotational, not situational.
Yeah, I've been pumping this guy's tires as sort of the Daron Harmon day 3 pick is Malachi Moore from Alabama.
Yeah,
who has similar range and instincts and ball hawking ability in the deep part of the field. I think he's one of those guys that is exactly the Daron Harmon role, 3rd down. An 8 when you gotta have it. You just put him in the deep middle. He's gonna cover the post. He's gonna cover over the top. He's gonna take advantage of those arm punts that every once in a while Daron Harmon would take advantage of, the closer, right, and go and make those types of plays. Is he Ed Reed in the middle of the field? No, he's not that kind of impact player. But he's a guy that can come in and play that role and allow Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers to do their thing closer to the line of scrimmage. We've been talking about this a lot, and I feel like every single year, and some people push back on it, but I really feel strongly that they got to get those guys, Duggar and Peppers, back into their natural spots, especially when the game is on the line and when they're really in those money situations. Get Kyle Duggar out of the middle of the field, get him closer to the box, get him moving forward again, get him blitzing, get him covering tight ends, that sort of thing. I think they're much better players when Duggar and Peppers are doing those types of things versus asking them to play free safety. So even if it's a guy that comes in that's only going to play 35, 40% of the snaps, 50% of the snaps, but it's allowing those guys to play where they should be playing, I think that would really complete this secondary. That would put the puzzle completely together.
We're back to the Javon Holland talk, basically.
Yeah, 100%. All right, do you have any more safeties?
Day 3, deep safety, Dante Trader from Maryland.
I loved him at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was a really good player down
this
there.
Is Bill's guy. He was a top 10 lacrosse recruit coming out of high school?
Yeah, he was he moved up the board a little bit. I think maybe the Senior Bowl helped him. He had a good week down there.
Big-time lacrosse player and football player, and now I was just going to get to focus on football. Raw, but again, two-sport athlete. He's athletic as hell. He's one of the most truly athletic players in this draft. To me, a hyper-athletic safety, at the very worst, you're getting a plus special teams player. And for a guy that's projected to go, I think you'd probably get him 171 would be the earliest I think you need to take him. You might be able to get him with those 200 picks. A guy like that, to me, good. That'd be a good, solid pick.
Yeah, he's kind of a hybrid safety to me, just at least the way they used him at the Senior Bowl.
I think he
can play a little bit in the box and cover tight ends and also play deep.
He's still so raw. I like him as a coverage player.
Yeah.
He's still so raw. You can kind of turn him into whatever you want him to be. I don't know that he has a skill set at this point that it's he needs to play here, he needs to play there. He's just an athlete. Stick him somewhere and let him learn the position.
In Mobile, he played. They had him doing one-on-ones against tight ends for a lot of the week, and he did a really good job. I think he was one of the better safeties in respects of covering some of those tight ends down there at the Senior Bowl. So definitely a guy on my list as well. All right, we're gonna get into all your lovely calls and emails here. We got tons of emails rolling in, Alex. So as you can expect, 8 days before the draft, the people want to be heard from. But before we do,
wait, we have one more position. You almost snuck that by me. Yes.
No.
Give me one kicker. Name a kicker in the draft.
Ryan Fitzgerald.
All right, why Ryan Fitzgerald?
Florida State.
Why?
Big leg.
Okay.
Can hit from 50+. Made a 59-yarder against Georgia Tech, I heard. I read that on NFL.com.
Yeah, you did. And I think that was in Ireland.
Yeah. Big leg. Cut it through the Foxborough winters. Got good ball flight. The ball flies high, which is what Jeremy Springer was talking about, right? Got to cut it through the wind and the air here in Foxborough. Ryan Fitzgerald.
I still like Sauls. I think they're going to take Borgalis because the other thing Springer talked about a lot was consistency.
Yeah.
So Sauls had a really good 2022 and he had an excellent 2024. He kind of slipped in 2023. He took a step back.
Good.
He didn't have a good year. Borgalis has been steady. All 4 years he's been a starter at Miami. I think that's what they're going to value more than the bad weather.
Yeah, Fitzgerald, at least from what I read, again, did not do any homework on the kickers besides reading NFL.com's scouting report. 40 to 49 range is a little iffy for him, but he's money from inside 40, and then he's got the big leg to kick 50+. But those intermediate kicks were a little bit of a up and down roller coaster for him, and I feel like that might take them off the board. That might put them in a different category.
So then the guy you're probably looking at, if you value that, is Tyler Loop from Arizona.
Loop.
7 of 8 from 40 to 49 last year, but also was 6 of 9 from 50+, including Evan, a 62-yarder.
62. Get that. All right, you good now? Got your kickers?
Yeah. There's just numbers-wise, forget talent. There's not a lot of kickers in this draft.
No, but there's some draftable kickers.
Yeah,
we just named a couple.
Borgalis will get drafted.
I think
Sauls and Fitzgerald might be.
Yeah.
Loop, we'll see.
Patriots Catch-22 is sponsored by Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at massachusetts250.org. And easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. All right, let's get to your phones and to your emails. Thank you so much for waiting on the line. I know you guys have been waiting for a while. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What is going on, gentlemen?
Hey.
How we doing?
Doing great today, man. 8 days to the draft. I just wanted to express one of the things that's been somebody brought this up, and I can't remember who brought it up, but the fact, or not the fact, but the hypothetical, if we were to pick Genti at number 4, what are the odds that he signs a second contract? And just let me rant here for a minute. Alex, I'm 100% in agreement with you because I think you were one of the first two people to bring up. Our first 3-round guys, they have to contribute. They have to play. They have to contribute. Maybe not even start. But to me, the bigger picture thing with this draft, because it doesn't look like it's going to happen with last year's draft, is I want all 3 of those picks, or all 4 of those picks, in the first 3 rounds, to be able. I want guys that are going to sign second contracts, because how long did we go without signing a first or second round guy over the last 10 years? I think Duggar was the last one last year, right? And I don't even know the answer to the question.
I remember looking it up. It was it had been 5 or 6 years. No, I think longer than that. But anyway,
not only do they need to hit, they need guys that they're going to sign second contracts and be part of this nucleus and this Vrabel era. That's all I got. That's all I had to get off my chest. I'll call you guys next week with my predictive picks.
Awesome. Love it, Patty. Thanks for the call. It was a wild in between guys. It was like Dante Hightower was like the last one for like a really long time. In between guys that they drafted in the first round and signed to second contracts. I think Juwan Bentley might have ended the run technically for overall draft picks.
Yeah.
Which is
I remember Uche and Jennings. No, it was Uche and Jennings for top 100 picks. Before them, it was, if you don't count Joe Tooney's franchise tag, it was, that's right, it was Logan Ryan and Deron Harmon.
Yeah.
So they had a gap there. As for Genty in a second contract, I mean, it's a fair question. It's obviously a position where durability is more of a question than usual. Genty, you're not drafting Genty. I don't want to say you're not drafting Genty with a long-term outlook. I don't want to say this. Like, I think one of the big boosts for drafting Genty, if you're part of the conviction for drafting him, he's an immediate shot in the arm of the offense. This is not a guy that needs to develop. This is not a guy that needs to grow. He's going to step on the field. Does he have, just all things even, Evan?
Yeah.
He has a quicker path to make an impact. He's a better chance to make a massive impact more than any other player they'd take it for.
Yeah, if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter aren't there, I think that what you're trying to say with Genty, to me at least, is like you just inherently expect a running back to have a little bit of a shorter shelf life.
Yeah,
and I think his career, I've said this in the past, I think would probably mirror something like Zeke Elliott's career, where the rookie contract is phenomenal. Like he's like an all-pro player every single year of his rookie contract. But then once you get into the second contract, year 5, year 6, year 7, you just see a precipitous drop-off like you did with Zeke. I think it's similar because Zeke also carried the ball a lot at Ohio State and was like a featured back at Ohio State. And then he came into the NFL and was the best player from his rookie class, his rookie year, I would say, and was awesome for Dallas. Like Dallas was a wagon that year and had him in the playoffs.
I just think if you're drafting Genty, part of the reason you're drafting him is to get the offense going as quick as possible.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
So
I think the Dallas probably had, they didn't know that Dak was going to hit, but they had a similar kind of plan for sure with the Cowboys. All right, Todd is in North Carolina. What's up, Todd? Todd, what
do you got? 3, 2, 1.
All right, Todd, we had you on hold for a while. Give us a call back if you want. Randy is in Providence. What's up, Randy?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey.
I had a quick draft question for you and a couple names I wanted to throw at you. But Alex had been talking about working at the stadium to open the program, and I wanted to share a quick story, if you don't mind. When I worked there in the warehouse in like 2005 and 2006, that was the year Teddy Bruschi was coming back. And the warehouse, they stock up concession stands and food locations and stuff. And back then, the security CSC guys had a food room right by the mouth of the tunnel, and I was stocking that up when Teddy Bruschi came out onto the field. And, I mean, he was at the podium all the time. You'd see him on TV, and he looked like a totally regular dude. He looked like someone's dad. He's very conservative, mild-mannered, et cetera. But I remember watching him run past me, and he just looked like a madman. His eyes were so intense. It blew my mind that it was the same guy that I had seen on TV. So I don't know. I thought it was a fun story to share with you. But the Travis Hunter, he came out with the CBS, basically saying, I think directly saying, if he wasn't allowed to play full time both sides of the ball, he would essentially retire. And I wonder how you guys think that's going to affect his stock. Not just with us, but just with the rest of the league. And not even just in that he wants to play both sides of the ball full time, but the idea that he can come in making such a demand might offset some coaches or ruffle some feathers and so forth. And then the couple names I had for you guys is I don't think I heard you mention either Omar Norman Lott or J.J. Pegues. Good penetrating D tackles. And then one guy on offense. Have you guys seen any Lamb Larrison tape? The guy is... It's wild stuff. I mean, one-handed catches while he's breaking tackles, hurdling players left and right. It's really entertaining highlight reel stuff to watch. So thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Randy. Good call. To the first point, What was the first point?
The Travis Hunter thing.
Travis Hunter, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, so he didn't say he'd retire if he couldn't play both ways full time.
Right.
The full time was not a part of that.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead, dude. Like, don't play football. I don't think it's going to impact it that much.
I don't think it impacts it at all.
No, he wasn't talking about playing full time, and I do think he'll play whatever, and he's going to play wide receiver primarily. I think wherever he ends up, I do think he'll still mix in a little bit on defense. And I'd call his bluff, or I'd say, all right, fine, then go cover kicks. You want to be on the football field so bad, go cover kicks.
I don't think it's going to matter one
iota.
Doesn't. No, I think that this kind of stuff never really truly matters to prospects' status. I mean, he's obviously extremely unique in terms of what he can do, but I think he's going to be a Cleveland Brown, and I don't think there's really much that he could say outside of like pulling like an Eli Manning and saying I refuse to play for the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
That would stop him from being a Cleveland Brown. So I don't necessarily look too much into any of that kind of stuff, and I am with you. It's not necessarily that he's saying that he has to play 100% of the snaps on both sides of the football.
Right.
He just wants the opportunity to potentially play both sides, and I keep mentioning it because he was with us yesterday, but Marcus Jones has played both sides of the ball, obviously not at a high clip on offense, but he technically has played both sides of the ball, so I don't think it's going to be too hard for a team to appease Travis Hunter in that respect. They'll get him snaps on both sides of the football eventually. All right, here he is. Eldred's in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred? There we go.
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Good.
I got a question. Really two. Okay. Every mock draft and then some of the chat sports or NFL Rush, Patriots, or whatever, podcasts I've been listening to, why everybody want to keep getting slot receivers when all we got is a bunch of slot receivers? Not an X. Not a true X. And the second question is, what round do, because I can't find it on PFF, did they got Thornton selected to go in, and Jalen Smith and John Giles? If they are coming back, or they just camp body? And I'll take it off the air. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Eldred. I think those last two guys that you mentioned that were on the Patriots roster are practice squad, camp tryout types. Dante Thornton, I think, is probably going to be mid-day 3, 5th or 6th round.
He get up there. He sneak into the 4th.
He is a complete project. He doesn't have very many branches to his route tree. He's got catch point issues that he's going to have to work out. He is a size speed project, and if he goes to a team that knows how to develop receivers, like if he goes to Pittsburgh, for example, and trains underneath DK Metcalf, who is like probably the apex of his archetype, then maybe Dante Thornton can turn into something. The reason it's a good question about, there's a lot of conversations about Jalen Knoll or Kyle Williams or Luther Burden, guys that play in the slot versus outside. And I would just say there's not a ton of pure X receivers in this draft at the top of the draft, outside of Tet and Jaden Higgins. If it's not one of those two guys,
Trey Harris.
Maybe Trey Harris, it'd probably be like first, second, third round. And so those are the three guys that really, that I can think of, unless you're an A.U. Manor guy who can play a little bit on the outside, maybe full time. And, the obviously like day 3 guys, but, that's what I think the enticing guys is the point I'm trying to make. Knoll, Williams, Burden, Egbuka, Matthew Golden, even those guys are more move, Z flanker type of receivers than the pure X guys, and that's just the type of people, the type of receiver that people are looking for.
Well, I would also push back on the idea that all the Patriots have are slot guys. I don't think that's at least not proven. Pop Douglas is not. We got to go back to that McDaniels offense. That's the other reason we're talking so much about the slot. This is not an offense, a passing game that runs through the X receiver. It's an offense that runs through the slot receiver and the tight end. So Pop Douglas is a good player. I have nothing against Pop Douglas. He's not a Josh McDaniels slot player.
Yeah.
He's going to be more in that Chris Hogan role. He's going to line up in the slot, but he's going to go more vertical. He's not a chain mover. He's not a guy you can throw the ball to 120 times a season. He's just not built for that. Jalen Polk is more that prototype, but is he a guy that you're comfortable putting into that spot without any real competition this year? After that, Baker's going to play primarily on the outside. Booty is a Z outside guy. I think Bourne is a true Z. Maybe you're going to play Steph Diggs in the slot, but I guess I should have included him in there if they're comfortable with Diggs as that guy. I don't know that that's the best uses of him, though. I want him as the Z. To me, ideally, it's Diggs. Diggs is the full-time Z.
Yeah.
Pop Douglas is kind of your fourth receiver, your big play. He's not going to play a lot, but when he's on the field, he makes an impact.
He's Danny Amendola.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you got to get an X in a slot. And I don't even know that they need, if they want to throw Booty out there at the X, fine. If they get a really good slot receiver, I think that would work. Or you have Booty and Bourne and Baker all compete, what have you. I do think slot's a need because this is a slot-heavy offense. They don't have anybody proven there. Pop Douglas, to me, is a proven player, but he's not a guy you can put in that role in this offense for what that player's asked to do.
Well, so the question is really, and coming off the injury, is with Diggs, is Diggs going to be able to be a high-volume receiver next year? Because if he's a high-volume receiver next year, then he is the Z receiver in this offense that gets fed the targets. That's the Edelman, Welker, Deion Branch, Troy Brown type of receiver in this offense. He's the chain mover. He's the engine of the offense. My big question with McDaniels, just in general, and we get to talk to him a little bit more, his offense is historically, now not so much the Raiders because they ended up getting Devontae Adams and they kind of pivoted away from this, but historically speaking in New England, they've had a sacrificial X receiver whose job is literally just to draw coverage away from where they're actually trying to throw the football. So is he always going to have an X receiver that's just doing wind sprints on the outside, and occasionally if he gets behind the defense he'll see targets? Or are they going to try to revamp the offense around a X receiver that is the high volume guy in the offense? They did it in Vegas with Devontae Adams. They obviously did it here with Randy Moss, but that's Devontae Adams and Randy Moss.
But and even those two guys, Moss was here with Welker. And Moss wasn't catching 100 passes.
Right.
Welker was. To a lesser extent in Vegas, Jacoby Myers was in that role. So you need a guy in the slot that you're comfortable targeting 100 to 120 times in the season.
100%.
Is that guy on this roster right now? I don't think so.
So you don't think it's Steph Diggs? Because I think it might be.
He probably is the best shot.
Yeah.
I wonder with the injury if that's how they want to use him. Yeah. You also don't have him at the beginning of the year. You don't know where he's at.
Fair enough.
He is the best shot, but I don't feel great about Polk being that guy. I like Pop as a player. That's not his role. That's not where he's going to be at his best. Who else is even really in contention, has the skill set for that?
Yeah, I think that's their vision for Diggs, assuming that he's healthy, is to really be the chain mover and be the engine of the offense. And
I want to see him in the role
guy.
Bourne was in 21 before he got sick. Peak Bourne in 21.
It's adjacent. We're in the
it's adjacent, but he was playing off of Myers.
Yeah, but Bourne was in a catch and run role. I think Diggs is a true it's 3rd and 8. I'm going to get you 9, 10, 11
Yeah,
yards.
but I don't have a problem with that being part of Diggs' role. I want to see him at all 3 levels. I think he can still make plays at all 3 levels. So I'm talking about the guy that you're going to have go, run a return route at the sticks.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. He's going to do it really well, and he's going to pick up yards after the catch, but that's his assignment. I want that can be part of what Diggs does, and he can function in this role at times.
Yeah.
But I want him doing more than that.
So I agree. I could see that. I think that the role, that you're probably talking about, they're probably envisioning for Pop. I think Douglas is going to be, the pure, number 3 inside of Haas that's running the juke series and things like that.
Fair enough.
Because, Diggs is probably going to be running the seams or whatever. I could see that. I think that, when you look at the McDaniels offense and the receivers that typically, have played the X in his offense. I think Trey Harris from Ole Miss is exactly the type of X receiver that they would target. That he is a sacrificial X.
Was he the one you compared to LaFell?
Yeah.
Well, he can do a little more than that. Sacrificial, I get no offense because, I like this player's Damiere Byrd. Or Nelson Aguilar at the end.
Damiere Byrd and Nelson Aguilar are extreme examples of what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's the role. But
LaFell made some plays though.
Yeah, and I think Trey Harris would make some plays. All right, I think that's.
But do you need to take that guy in the second round?
No, I think that's probably someone you take at the 3rd round or maybe at 106.
Can Dante Thornton do that?
Maybe in a couple years, if he develops. Dante Thornton is a one-trick pony without very many other tricks.
When you say sacrificial, I'm thinking just wind sprints.
I think when I say sacrificial, I mean like a guy on the outside that, again, is not Randy Moss. Like, he's not really dictating coverage plan, but you have to at least respect the fact that he's on the field.
Right.
Like, we're not talking about a complete, we're just not even going to worry about this guy being out there, but it's not a high volume role. And it's a role that is a lot of clear outs, taking coverage out of the way, occupying the post safety in the middle of the field, like that sort of stuff, like, because they're trying to hit,
Right.
different areas, between the numbers at the first and second level, tight ends, slot receivers, running backs out of the backfield. So you have to have somebody that is there to take the top off, but that's not necessarily a guy that's going to see a whole lot of targets. I think Trey Harris is probably the best in this draft in the third round range as somebody that could purely do that. Now, if it was me, to your point a little bit, like Jalen Noel can come in and be like the true slot in this offense.
You can throw Jalen Noel ball 120 times.
Yeah, Kyle Williams might be able to do that too and play a little bit more on the outside and kind of play almost like Diggs, where he has like a little bit of inside-outside versatility. So I just think those guys offer a little bit more, whereas if you're taking Trey Harris or if you're taking Ayo Manor or if you're taking even Dante Thornton later, like you're taking them to play that role for the rest of their career, right? Like that's what they're going to come in and do, is run wind sprints on the outside.
At what point do you look at it and just say that's Matt Collins and they don't take an X?
That's kind of where I'm at, right?
Okay.
Like, is like, would you do that when you could have Kayshon Boutte do that, or you could have Matt Collins do that? Like, would you really waste a top 100 draft pick on something that Kayshon Boutte is capable of doing? Every once in a while when Kayshon Boutte gets a matchup and he has a good release, he's going to get a go ball.
I mean, it's the highest paid corner in football last year.
Yeah, right. Like, that, do you have to use another top 100 pick on a guy that is just going to do that?
I want them to prioritize the slot. That's what you need, that guy that can, and you're right, it's Higgins. It's Noel. I even wonder about Kyle Williams in that role a little bit, just because like he's not a big guy either. He strikes me as more of a Z than like a McDaniel slot.
Yeah. He's just a great separator.
Are you done with Restrepo?
Pretty much. Like, if I'm drafting Restrepo, though, I'm drafting him like to push or replace Pop Douglas. Like, he's like the fourth guy in this mix to me.
They do very different things.
Yeah, not really though. Like, I think that if you're
Pop's fast.
Right, but they're both, in my mind, guys that they're going to have running quick hitters. Like, you're going to have Restrepo running the juke route. You're going to have Restrepo, finding soft spots over the middle of the field and zone. Like, that would be the one thing that I would say he probably is better at than Pop. Like, Pop doesn't have a great feel for zone right now yet, and like kind of finding those pockets and making himself available and things like that and settling and all that good stuff. Like, Restrepo could probably do that a little bit better already, but Pop is obviously way more dynamic, as a mover. Restrepo, to me, I still think is a Danny Amendola type. Like, I still think that's a decent comp.
I don't think he has the burst for that, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to some of these emails. We have a lot of emails rolling in. So, this is an interesting question, and I think it's something that we've talked about a little bit. But this is Steven from Crown Point, and he did a lot of homework. We can't really translate this to radio, Steven, so I apologize. But basically, his argument is, Will Campbell obviously has a lot of talk about his arm length, 32 and 5/8 at the combine, 33 at his pro day, and
33 is the correct number.
He mentioned he did the homework of all the pass rushers that Will Campbell faced, and that were top 100 guys that he faced in 2025, and wrote down all of their arm lengths, and basically made the point that he's been winning against guys with longer arms than him for 3 years in the SEC.
The SEC, those guys are going to the league.
Yeah, so the one guy that I looked at when I wrote my film review of Will Campbell, which published today on Patriots.com, was Shamar Stewart, who has over 34-inch arms.
Yeah.
And now, I'm not the biggest Shamar Stewart fan, so maybe it's a little bit, I kind of have some concerns about Stewart as a player, and then I kind of pumped up Campbell using Stewart as an example, but Stewart has 34-inch arms and is a bull rusher. Like, that's a power, linear, downhill bull rusher with great arm length and great raw measurables. And Will Campbell had no problem whatsoever anchoring against Shamar Stewart in that game. So I use that as an example. It's a great point.
It's a good point.
It's a great point about Will Campbell's arm length, and something that I feel like we've touched on a little bit. This is another question about tackles from Larry. And he just wanted us to give like the best case and worst case scenario for Will Campbell and Armand Membu. Now, I always put this caveat in there. The worst case for any draft prospect is that they stink and they're out of the league, right? Like that's the worst case. But let's talk about realistic worst cases. And I think the answer for Will Campbell's obvious. He's either a best case great franchise left tackle, or worst case he's a left guard, starting left guard in the NFL. With Membu, I think it's either franchise left tackle or right tackle. I think that's the one case for the pro Membu people that I don't hear enough of pro Membu people make, is that worst case scenario. If we're going to give Will Campbell that he's going to be a good guard no matter what, then why would we not give Membu that he's going to be a good right tackle no matter what, right? Like that just stands to reason.
Because the Patriots don't need a right tackle, and there is an argument that they need a left guard.
Not immediately.
Not immediately. But I would structure that differently. Like, who has the quicker path to the worst case? And I think it's Membu.
Yeah.
That move is so tough. And Campbell, he doesn't have the longest arms, but they're not uncharacteristically short, despite what some people think. He's at 33 inches, same as Rashawn Slater. And most importantly, he doesn't have to learn anything new. He gets to play the same position he's played his entire life. Armand Membu has to come in and play a position he's never played in his life. Like, that's a major variable that doesn't get talked about. Like, people talk about, it's arm length versus position switch, and they just go to arm length because it's physical, but it's like, okay, but one guy has gotten here despite that shortcoming. The other guy, we have no clue what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so Membu, there's much more unknown there.
So the question is that, I guess the pro Membu thing is, okay, Morgan Moses is 34 years old.
Right.
So if we try him at left tackle as a rookie, and worst case scenario, he fails at left tackle as a rookie, how long are we really expecting Morgan Moses to keep playing? So is there a chance that in 26, Armand Membu is just our starting right tackle? Now you're back to the drawing board at left tackle, and you have to do that whole thing all over again. But you would be in the same spot at right tackle, too, if Morgan Moses decides, I'm retiring at 35 years old. Like, you also are going to need a right tackle. So in some ways, like we talk about backstops with Will Campbell being left guard, or guard in general, I don't understand why nobody just says the backstop for Membu is right tackle, right? Like, it's just right there.
No, it's fair. But again, then the question I ask is, who is more likely to get to the worst case? Who has a tougher path to avoid that worst case?
Yeah, I would probably say, Membu is probably more likely to play right tackle long term than left tackle, just based off of what I see of him on tape.
Yeah.
His body type and his obviously his experience on that side.
So,
but
instead of assuming the worst case scenario, let's actually look at which player has a better chance at avoiding the worst case scenario, and I think that's Campbell.
That's a fair point. I just think it's funny how like everybody's like asked that question about Membu. It's like it's right. The answer is right there. It's just his natural position, which is right tackle. All right.
You could argue his natural position is guard. That's what he was recruited as coming out of high school. He's built more like one physically.
Yeah, but he's so athletic, and he's got the length to play tackle. I don't know why you would move him inside.
Because every tackle should always be moved inside to guard. We should have no tackles because nobody's good enough at it.
So 2 questions from Phil in North Carolina that are good ones. One shout out to you. I'll get to that in a second. But this first question is along the same lines of what we're just talking about. We brought this up a couple of shows ago about J.C. Latham and him trying left tackle as a rookie, and now they get him back to right tackle. And he just asked, what's the difference between Membu and J.C. Latham? I think they're different types of players. Latham's a phone booth player. Latham's a power player. He's someone that is got incredible power at the point of attack and people moving skill. Membu is a much better athlete than J.C. Latham is, and that gives you a little bit more hope about him switching to the left side. So that's the short answer there. The other question that Phil had, or just a guy that he is gravitating towards as a sleeper, is Isaac Tesla, who we brought up a couple shows ago as well.
There's a slot for you.
And I just watched Tesla semi-recently, too.
Tesla.
Is it Tesla?
Tesla.
Tesla. Like that?
Yeah.
Tesla.
That's how they're saying it at the combine. You don't have to be that ridiculous with the A. Tesla.
Isaac Tesla. It sounds funny. It sounds funny.
Think like
I'm sorry, I don't mean to tease
I know.
him,
Think
but-
it's like T''S instead of the E. Imagine if it was like that.
What I was impressed by him, well, first of all, the athleticism, his relative athletic score, his RAS, was off the charts. Like, really good athlete. Another one of these, like, day 3 developmental guys that's got a ton of physical talent. But what I was really impressed with him was how good he is after the catch, like on screens and stuff like that. Like, he's a true catch and run threat. Not necessarily elusive, but he's one of those guys that just is, got great contact balance.
He's 6'4", 212.
Yeah, he's just a tank.
When he gets moving, guys are going to bounce off him.
Yeah,
I really like his ability to track the ball, too, down the field. Like, he does a good job with that.
Yeah, I kind of put him in a similar bucket as Thornton, Dante Thornton, just because they're both, like, a little raw but have great size, speed, weight measurables.
So I hadn't really thought of this with Tesla. We talk about all these guys that play on the boundary in college and move inside.
Yeah.
Tesla, heavy slot receiver.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that can move outside at the NFL? Could he be the X?
Potentially, but I feel like with him, he's such a ball of clay in terms of his technique, like his releases, and especially if you're going to play the X and play a lot of like backside coverage, you're going to see a lot of press man. So you have to be able to release at the line of scrimmage. Like that's the number one thing. There's not a lot of evidence. It's not that I don't think he could do it.
It's more of a projection.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of it on tape.
Yeah.
What's him on tape is screens, seam routes, underneath crossers, shallows, where he's just catch and run with the football. But I thought some of the screen stuff that he was doing was really impressive. Like, he's going to be a true gadget player right out of the gate. I don't have a great comp for him, but I just feel like that was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a little more craft and a little less explosiveness. He's actually the opposite. Yeah. He's a raw.
He's a boomer bust player. He's going to catch that really short stuff and then the go ball.
Yeah. All right, Curtis in St. Louis.
Wait, what was there's something else in that email?
That was it. It was
I thought you said there was something about me or whatever.
Yeah, he said because you brought up Tesla.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah. Curtis in St. Louis has 2 questions that are both good ones. First one, is there a pick the Patriots can make it for that would make you pull your hair out or left feeling underwhelmed? He has his, but I'll reveal it after we reveal ours.
Shitter.
Okay, come on, be serious.
I know it's a weird draft. There's a lot of players that like are fine picks. I can see the path. I definitely have my preferences. At 4, I mean, if we want to go nuts, like if they take like the second best player to position, right?
Yeah.
So if they took like Kelvin Banks, right, with Will Campbell and Membu still on the board. If they took, it's tough to even say a receiver because Matthew Golden, like I wouldn't necessarily be super upset if they took him over Tet. I don't know that I'd love either guy at 4, but that would make sense. If they took like Walter Nolan over Mason Graham, right? Like I think it would probably have to be something like that. There aren't that many players in this draft that I just outright hate for them. There really aren't.
Yeah.
At least at the top.
So I feel like I am contractually obligated to say Ashton Genty, but I don't think I would be like that pulling my hair out. I probably would be underwhelmed by them taking Genty because I'd have all the reservations about taking a running back that high. But he's so talented that I wouldn't be like, what a horrible pick. Like that would not make sense. Like that's not the right
you know what? I know who it would be.
Situation.
And no offense to the player. It's more about them. Will Johnson.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
He's a fine player. There's better players on the board, and taking a boundary corner that high for the setup they have, that would make no sense. I couldn't even think of one because he's not even on my radar for the 4th overall pick. Will Johnson would make no sense to me.
So the pick that I would probably be pulling I don't think I'd pull my hair out for anybody, but the pick that I'd probably feel the most underwhelmed by would be Jalen Walker, honestly. Like I just...
Oh, I think I'd be more underwhelmed by like Mason Graham.
So his was Mason Graham. Curtis said Mason Graham. Maybe it's just the way that I have my top 10 is set up. Like I have Mason Graham with the higher grade. Like I just think Mason Graham's a better player. Like I don't know. I don't love the idea of Jalen Walker at 4. I don't love the idea of Mason Graham at 4 either, and I don't love the idea of Genty. Like those are the 3 guys that If they took at 4, I would be underwhelmed. Would I be Cole Strange, like to bring back what I said earlier? I don't think I would have a meltdown on the air about them taking any one of those players, but I would be underwhelmed.
You know what? It would really be for me. It's not even a player. If they're so determined to trade down that they trade the pick for less than what it's worth, just so they can trade down, that would bother me. Be it for a couple of reasons. One, get what it's worth. Two, new-ish front office. Like, don't set the standard that you can be had in a trade just to move. Like, just don't be that team. And that tells me they don't like anybody on the board, and whoever they take at 9, they probably don't like that much. So it's not me saying don't trade down. Let me be clear. If they get like real value, do it. Trade down if you get what the pick's worth. If they trade down if they go from like 4 to 9, 4 to 10, 4 to 12 for like a 3rd round pick, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I feel like there is a lot of people out there that are just trade down at all costs. Like even if it's for pennies on the dollar, just trade down.
Don't set that precedent.
And I'm with you. The precedent's bad, and I also
get the better player.
Agreed. I don't think that it's that leveled off of a top 10 that we're really saying that they're all the same player. I just think that that's oversimplifying it. I do think there's a difference between these players.
And I think when you look at it for them specifically,
right?
Campbell, Membu, Jalen Walker, like, how far back are you? Like, yeah, all right, Ted McMillan, Mason Graham, Tyler Warren, it could work. I think those 3, it's not a full tier. It's like a half tier. So Hunter and Carter are tier 1. I would say Walker, Campbell, and Membu are tier 2A, and then the rest of those guys are 2B. So, if you don't have, I could be convinced to go to 2B, but you got to convince me to do it. I'm not just going to do it to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And it's funny because I feel like we said that thing about 9 and 40, and then everybody dragged on us and said, "Oh, you wouldn't do that. You're crazy." And then it resurfaced when the Saints with the Derek Carr news, and now everybody wants this king's ransom. And I was like, "What happened? I thought that 9 for 40 was the deal."
That was part of that take. Was if a team's moving up to get a quarterback, make them pay the quarterback tax.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Couple more emails here. We'll get back.
Still want my future pick.
We get back to the phone calls. You gotta be a little bit greedy. I'm not saying that you want to be crazy where you get a bunch of hang-ups on the old phone when you're trying to make the trades, but it's gonna be a little bit greedy with some of these. Along those same lines, just Tom from Jersey was asking if you would roll the dice on Will Campbell. By trading down. And seeing if he makes it to you. And he said, he's not a guy that he's running the card up for kind of guy. And I think where I've come to, in conclusion, with all months and months of talking about
we still
Will
have another
Campbell,
show after this week.
And I wrote this in my thing on Patriots.com is, do I think that he's a perennial future Hall of Fame All-Pro, Jonathan Ogden, Orlando Pace, Joe Thomas level prospect? No, but when I look at him, I see a lot of Jake Matthews. I've made that comp before. I know other people have made the Bernard Raymond comp with the Colts, and Bernard Raymond the last couple of years has been a top 10-ish tackle, left tackle in the NFL.
Matt Light.
I think, as much as you're going to say, wow, you're saying this, as corny and cliche as some of that stuff is, there's something about Will Campbell that just his intangibles and his character and his demeanor and just his attitude and what he's about.
It's a dog.
That just kind of tells me that he's going to break through a ceiling potentially.
Yeah.
And I'm for trading down at the right price, like we were just talking about, in a draft like this, but I'm not so gung ho about it that I'm willing to lose out on Will Campbell for pennies on the dollar. It'd have to be a trade where we all see the return and we're they had to.
Again, I go to 1st round pick, 2nd round pick, and then depending how far down you're moving, a future top 50 pick.
Yeah,
somewhere in there. That's where I'm settling. I'd obviously start higher, but that's ultimately I think what would get it done. Unless you're moving way down the 20s, but
right.
How far down can you move for Campbell? It's tough. The thing that would make me nervous is Miami lurking at 13. I don't think you're necessarily if you're moving back beyond 13, you're not going to get him. But I also, and the Bears at 10 too, like those are teams that it makes a lot of sense for him to go to that have ammunition to move up. So you may look at it and say, well, we can go back to call it 8 with Carolina, right? Or I'll just do 9 because that's what we're doing this week. You may look at it and say, okay, there's no tackle teams between 4 and 9. We can move back and get them. And now, here come the Bears up to 7. Here come the Dolphins up to 8. Yeah. And now you got jumped. That's what you got to be worried about. When they did the move back for Gonzalez in 23, the thing that they had that we didn't know at the time that it's reported they knew, 2 of those teams weren't going to take a corner, and they knew Washington really liked Emmanuel Forbes for whatever reason. So they had it, but there was still the risk that somebody was going to move up. Like, there's always that risk. So that's what I worry about with Campbell. I don't think realistically where you're moving down, there's a ton of tackle teams there. The Bears and Dolphins, and maybe there's some others too that I'm missing, but like there are teams lurking that can move up and jump you to take the tackle. That would be the bigger concern for me.
Yeah. So Andrew in DC writes in about Will Campbell too, and he said that he wasn't impressed with him early on in the process, but me, Evan, gloating about Will Campbell or whatever. I think he said moaning. I don't know about moaning. Anyways, about Will Campbell, he watched the tape again, and he said that he sees a more of a technician now, and his pass blocking. But the one thing he points out about Campbell that he doesn't see is great finishing or raw power to his game, and said that he thinks that Membu and Banks have that more regularly. And I actually would agree with that. Like, I don't think Will Campbell is a true stack the pancakes kind of guy. He's more of a technician. He's more of a positional run blocker, athlete, in pass protection. I would just say that, he just plays a different style than those two guys. Those two guys are more, road graders. They got a bigger size and weight to them as well. They're more blocky, wide-bodied type of players than Will Campbell is. But to me, it's pass blocking is the most important thing. Yeah. Like, I would put pass blocking in as the number one thing. For my, if I'm building a team, my left tackle would be a very high level pass blocker first and foremost. I think protecting the quarterback and keeping the integrity of the pocket is the most important thing that tackles do at the NFL level. So I think he's the best pass protector out of the group, and I think he has plenty of snarl and toughness to him.
And I was going to say, let's see what he looks like when he comes in after having to hear about his freaking arms for 4 months. Yeah, see what kind of edge he's playing with then.
I hear what he's saying, though, in general, when you watch the tape amongst these 3 guys. I would say Campbell is probably the least in terms of raw power. Yeah. He's probably 3rd on the list, but it's just a difference of what you want in the player. And again, he asks who plays like that at the NFL level, and this reason is why I keep going back to the Jake Matthews comp, because I don't think Jake Matthews has ever been known for being like a true road grader or a true people mover in the run game, but he's just a very technically sound, very polished left tackle that doesn't get beat too often, and I think that's what Campbell's going to be. So Andrew, your eye is not totally off. I don't know if I would prioritize. He says his subject line is Campbell isn't violent. And I understand that's fun, right? And you can see that's tangible when you watch tape of offensive linemen or guys that finish is fun to watch. But I don't know if that's necessarily the most important thing when it's all said and done. All right, let's get back to the phones, and we'll wrap up the show here. Sean is in Vancouver. What's up, Sean?
Happy Passover, Alex and Evan. Hope
Thank you, sir.
Having a good one.
You too.
I have 2 things. One question I have is about a wide receiver who was injured, but I've heard that he's good to go now, is Torrey Horton. My concern, though, is his frame too small? And then the other question I have is a hypothetical, and not what you guys would do yourselves, but what you think the Patriots would do if New Orleans decides to make a trade and offer their second-round pick. Would the Patriots stay and just turn it down and draft Will Campbell, assuming that Carter and
Hunter
and Hunter are gone, or would they make the trade and and after that would they just keep picks at 9, 38, and 40 and stay there, or would they move around? Right, that's it. I'll take it off there.
Thanks, John.
Yeah,
Appreciate the call.
I hope they'd ask for more in that trade. I think if you end up with 38 and 40, especially after moving back, you're definitely moving up. Should be. What was the first question? Is Torrey Horton's brain too small?
Frame.
I
heard brain at first too, but I was like, he wouldn't say that.
I heard that. Well, and then I was like, did he say sprain? Because he had a sprained ankle this year. I was like, you can have a size sprain.
Yeah.
He plays bigger than he is, and he's got some room to put muscle on. I don't think he can play. I'd have him put muscle on. I don't think his current frame is where you want him to play, but I think his frame, you can change that and get him to where you need him to be.
Yeah, I'm not totally out on Torrey Horton. I don't hate him as somebody that they can pick in the 4th or 5th round.
I think he's being slept on a little bit. There's an X for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't necessarily.
He's 6'2", 200.
I wasn't wowed by. I actually watched him against Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
And most of his yards in that game were shallow crossers.
How much 20? So he's another one. How much 23 did you watch?
I think this was in 23 against Travis Hunter. But look, a perfectly capable flyer, and then to your point, is a guy that was higher on the board, significantly higher, or projected to be higher, and then got injured. And if you're looking to try to do that thing, where you kind of buy low on a player in the draft, then Torrey Horton is probably that at wide receiver. I think he's probably the guy to be doing that at wide receiver.
I like Torrey Horton.
And the other thing, just quickly about the Saints, Nick Underhill does a great job covering the Saints. I think it's NOLA.football is his site, and he does a fantastic job. One of the most plugged in guys on the Saints, and he's been reporting pretty consistently that he doesn't see the Saints drafting Shedeur Sanders. That they're not a Shedeur team.
Well, maybe they want to trade up for Mason Graham, Evan.
I just would pump the brakes because I trust Nick and I trust his reporting.
No, I'm with you.
I would pump the brakes a little bit on the 9-4 jump for Shedeur.
Maybe they want Mason Graham. I've been putting in my mock drafts the Saints taking Mason Graham because it's Kellen Moore trying to recreate Jalen Carter and Milton Williams with Tyler Burzee and Mason Graham.
A very, very worse version of Milton Williams and Jalen Carter.
I said trying to recreate.
but
trying to recreate.
I think the one thing, too, about the quarterback thing, just quickly, all these teams, the Browns, the Giants, maybe Vegas, maybe the Jets, maybe the Saints, maybe the Steelers. It's 6 teams. All of those teams are saying, we'll just get the quarterback in the second round.
Yeah.
Not all of them can get the quarterback in the second round, right? Someone's going to have going to be lose out on the musical chairs. If every single team is targeting Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe, and there's 5 teams that are going after 2 players, then 3 teams are going to be left without a dance,
Raiders will get Will Howard.
A date to the dance.
So what could end up happening is we could see a run on quarterbacks late in the first round.
Yeah.
Where do you get the Browns and these teams trying to trade up from the early 30s?
Agreed.
And that would impact the Patriots. The question is in what way? On one hand, might make it more expensive to trade up.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to move up to get a tackle and these teams are trying to move up to get a quarterback, they're going to offer more. And if there's a team and they're dead set on taking a tackle and you can't jump them, that makes it tough. Now, the flip side is if maybe those teams aren't set, that's going to push a tackle or a receiver down to 38.
Luther Burden.
Maybe. So it'll be interesting. But if you need a tackle, you need a tackle. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think we're going to see a lot of trades in the back half of this first round. I don't think we're going to see a ton at the top. Once we get into the 20s, especially if the Steelers...
Pittsburgh's at 21, right?
Right. So if the Steelers take a quarterback...
Shedeur.
And the Browns and Giants don't, right? Well, now here the Browns and Giants start trying to move up, and that's the range you're talking about the Patriots trying to trade into for Josh Connerly and maybe Ariante Ursary.
Yeah, it's a great point because I there's a lot of reporting out there about the Shedeur visit to the Giants, and there's another thing I want to get to in terms of news, but 1 second on this.
Yeah.
Just there's a lot of reporting out there, and now it's kind of getting walked back about this Shedeur one last private workout. I guess they have a one last private workout with the entire top of the quarterback class, like the Giants I'm talking about. So they're going to Shedeur today. They're going to Jalen Milroe on Friday, or maybe it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And they're going to Tyler Shough at some point,
You see that combine throw?
Yeah.
That went out there from Tyler Shough? Yikes.
So they were planning on doing this with all the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So this is not a unique to Shedeur thing, but some of the reporting out of the Shedeur stuff is that they might actually be looking at Shedeur at the top of the second round, not at the top of the first round. So all these teams, the Browns, the Giants, those teams that have been whispered to be connected to Shedeur Sanders might be looking at Shedeur Sanders at the top of the second round. But the problem with that is I don't think Shedeur Sanders is getting past the Steelers at 21. So if you don't somehow jump Pittsburgh at 21, if you're the Browns or you're the Giants, you're not getting Shedeur, in my opinion. So it's just a weird thing. Like I don't really like Shadeur's going to go higher than 33 or 34. I think
he's not getting a second round.
Right. So like at some point, and the slide's going to stop, right? And I feel like 21 with Pittsburgh is the stop. So that leaves them with Milroe, Dart, Howard, that tier.
Unless Pittsburgh gets nervous and tries to move up into the middle of the first.
Okay, really quickly, then we'll take this last call and we'll end it. This is a question from Matt in the OC on T.J. Watt, who I guess is in a contract dispute. I don't guess. This is what we're hearing, reports of this. T.J. Watt is in a contract dispute with Pittsburgh. It seems like maybe a trade would be in order. Are you in or out on T.J. Watt?
I mean, what am I trading? I take the player. He's a hell of a player.
Yeah.
I don't think he's getting moved, but great player. Yes, in.
Yeah, I'd definitely be in, but he's 30, 31 years old. Like, I'm not trading the farm for TJ Watt.
I guess, is it Palazzolo, right, from PFF?
Yeah.
Palazzolo, Steve Palazzolo.
Like a third-round pick.
Said a third-round pick.
Yeah.
What could be more poetic than trading the Matthew Judon pick? Now, they'd probably ask for 69, I'd give it to them.
Yeah.
But if you can get, like, third-round pick, I might even do, like, second, third pick swap. I don't know what their third-round pick is in Pittsburgh, but 38 for Watt and whatever their third is.
Can I just... Why do we have to make it so complicated? Like, we do all these trades now where it's like every time we talk about trades, and I'm not just picking on you, I'm picking on everybody. Every time we do these trades, it's got to be like, well, the Patriots get their second round pick, their fifth round pick, their seventh round pick in 2029, and then this team gets this pick and that.
Because that's how these trades happen. That's what they look like.
Can we just say like the value's like a third round pick? That's it. Can we just not get all complicated about it?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. What I would probably trade a third round pick for TJ Watt, yes, but I wouldn't give up much more. And I know that sounds crazy, but like just the value of the player, the age, the contract, like that's the world now that we live in the NFL.
So Evan, this is where that kind of, well, let's make it complicated comes from. If the Steelers are making that trade, they're trying to get tools to make sure they can move up if they need to and get Shedeur or a quarterback, right? 38 helps them significantly more than 69 does. So that's where, okay, they're going to want 38, but you don't want to give up that much. Okay, fine. You give up 38, but you get that third back. Now you pair two of those thirds and move back up into the second. You're back where you need to be. Well, why wouldn't Pittsburgh just make the trade themselves? Because you're helping them out, and that's part of the deal. You're making it easier for them.
All right, John is on the highway in SoCal. John, are you on the 10? Like, which highway are we talking about here?
Oh, with the LA stuff. Give it a break.
I'm on the 5.
On the 5. Yeah, I was close. What's up, John?
LA people.
Hey,
what's up, John?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I just got a quick comment about Will Campbell. I think that we very well have won a couple more games this year, like that Colts game in Miami without Tua. We could have easily been picking 7, 8, 9 in this draft, and I think we'd be slamming our fists against the table hoping Will Campbell fell to us there.
Yes, great point.
So I think that now that we're picking 4, all these Pats fans are turned off by Will Campbell. But, I think he's going to be our first pick anyway with around the same talent pool you'd get at 7, 8, 9. So I think, that's all I got for you guys.
Yeah, John, great call. Great way to look at it.
It seems too easy. It seems too good to be true. Is that part of the hate for Will Campbell? It's just too obvious.
I've said this take a million times. I'll say it one more time before the end of the draft, and I'm sure at least once. But this is one of those drafts where there's not a big talent gap once you get past Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. There's a little bit of a drop off there in talent, and it kind of levels off. At the end of the day, where the player plays, left tackle versus running back versus tight end, when you have Hunter Henry on the roster, you are going to probably see a lot of teams that try to marry up need with best player available, right? They're going to say, these guys are our best players available. They're all kind of similarly graded. Where are our holes? And the Patriots have a giant void at left tackle. Will Campbell's the best left tackle on the board. And that's why at this point, I feel like everybody, whether they're like us that have been on board pretty much the whole time on Will Campbell, or they're now coping and just saying it's going to be Will Campbell, so let's just all accept the fact that it's going to be Will Campbell. We're all there. We're all there now, because every mock draft I read now is the Patriots taking Will Campbell.
Yep.
We have reached the acceptance stage. Finally,
I was saying this to you the other week. The draft used to be 2 weeks earlier. They should. There's like a whole week in here we don't need.
I have an LA related take, but I'll save it. Save it. I know it'll drive you crazy, but confidence. It's important to have you when you're on the road with Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan. You're riding on tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's roads may lead. Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Available now at Sullivan Tire. All right, we'll be back next Wednesday, for our official draft preview show, because we haven't been previewing the draft for the last 6 months, so we have to have another show and call it the draft preview show, but we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, this is Fred. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure that you like us wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube page to see this show and everything else that we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.